pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Should we turn more lights on over here? You all have the agenda is here. There were a couple changes from the one that was sent out. Are there any additional items, any changes to the agenda?
Thank you.
I just have one item under reports and follow-up, and that is the inclusion, which we talked about a little bit ago, the anonymous call line.
The what?
The anonymous call line.
Oh, right.
That we discussed, that Detective Sergeant Lucchese talked to us about. So that's the only addition that I have. Any other changes? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
Make a motion, we accept the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. The minutes from our April 11th meeting. Any corrections, additions, deletions,
I
changes?
have one correction, Randall.
Yep.
In the minutes, it says that you were elected as temporary chair.
What
You were-
page?
Oh, Jesus, Mary and Joseph. What page? I think I wrote the page down.
I would have got you one.
It's got to be after
You
reports,
didn't
right?
number the pages.
Oh.
You didn't, I don't have a number on the page. Page 3.
Okay, page 3, old business. Nominations and election of chair. Commissioner Leverett says that we are now, blah, blah, blah. Leverett was elected temporary chair, so we need to...
Just take out temporary, you
Take
elected
out
chair.
Temporary.
Take out the word temporary.
Anything else?
That's all I found.
All right. Chair will entertain a motion to accept the minutes with corrections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Okay, with changes. All right. Public comment. No public comment. Reports and follow-up. Chief?
For this month, we have 7 letters or phone calls that were received in regards to some officers' actions. The first letter was in regards to Officer Halstead. First letter was for Officer Halstead. I just wanted to pass along appreciation for how respectful and helpful and overall good person that he was. She also commented on the department was very nice. A little kudos for me. She accredited that to me. But as I always say, you can lead the horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. So I give the officers the credit for that. But she appreciates the type ship that we run with our agency. Another letter was for Officers Bolson and Knoth. They responded to a resident for a rescue call. The issue was handled, but was just grateful for the officer's response for the medical call. Another woman had stopped in to thank Officer Kraus for responding on a welfare check concerning a friend of theirs. The lady also brought some flowers to the station to put in the break room for the officers, and she was very appreciative and again appreciated for the medical treatment that the officers gave in regards to a acute heart distress, as well as other medical issues. But again, just thanking Officer Kraus for their response and the welfare check. There's 2 letters here that are in regards to Officer Scott Shaffrick assisting in a funeral for a retired officer from Newburgh. A young man who's only retired a short time and passed away. One letter is from the Chief of Police from City of Newburgh, Mike Ferrara, and the other is from the individual's family. Again, thanking for the professionalism that was extended. We also sent our motorcycle, which Scott Shaffrick is one of our officers that ride the motorcycle. Brought it down for the procession for the officer. And we have a letter for, this was actually, was for the dispatch. The woman called just to say thank you. We were very helpful. She lost her purse and we assisted her in locating it, which she ended up eventually finding when she went back to where she was her last location. But she appreciated the help that dispatch gave, and that was Dispatcher Colleen Mayer. We have another letter here for Officers Quigley and Halstead. Calling to say thank you for the assistance of a bat being in her home. Husband was away and her recently passed away, and he was the one that would usually take care of the bat issue and was very appreciative of our officers going there and assisting in that. Defensive actions, we have 2 incidents for defensive actions. The first incident involved a 22-year-old female, 5'2", 112 pounds, small build, in regards to a disorderly conduct and a resisting arrest. When the officer attempted to place her in custody, grabbed onto her wrist, she spun away and pulled away and began to throw her arms wildly, so the officer put her in a wrist lock and directed her to the ground where he was able to handcuff her without further incident. The next incident, there are 4 defensive action reports from 2 different officers. This was in regards to a robbery burglary report. It was reported that the subjects in the vehicle may have possessed a weapon. A felony stop was conducted by the detectives, and the subjects were taken out of the vehicle at gunpoint, which is the procedure for a felony stop. Once they were secured in handcuffs, there was no further incident and everything was secured. The subjects was an 18-year-old white male, 5'8", 170 pounds, medium build. And the other subject was 18 years old, 5'10", 140 pounds, medium build. And that's all I have with the defensive actions.
One item under your commendations, I know that you went Sunday to the Chiefs Ball,
Yes.
and one of our officers was awarded. So would you comment on that for us, please?
Yes, it was actually the Ulster County Chiefs Association, their award banquet that they have every year. This was a little bit more of a special event because it was the 40th year of the association being in existence. So it was a very nice event, and it included a expo ahead of time with basically a museum of some old equipment, some old radios, uniforms from different departments across the county. So it was a very nice evening. And to cap it off for our agency, I believe I spoke about this at the last meeting, Officer Calvin Halstead received a award for his investigative actions during a burglary that was taking place, numerous burglaries that were taking place in our community. We had over 20 business burglaries.
Last summer, right?
Yes, yep. And in the work that he did in coming up with a suspect, and he was instrumental in the subject being taken into custody. So well-deserved award, and town supervisor also came to the event, and it was very nice to see. We had a nice turnout, some members of the department as well.
Any questions or comments on the chief's report?
Yes. Chief, you got the report marked as March.
Take your pen out, scratch that, make it April, please.
Don't have a pen. Can I use my pencil?
If you like, or I can give you one. I got it myself.
No, I didn't know if you
Yes.
were working on the
Good
March.
catch, yeah.
You know,
No, this was April. That's just because what I do is I use the previous month, I make the changes accordingly, but I usually change that date as well.
Okay, also, I want to state, just for the record, that the chief is still under budget, based upon the budget reports that get submitted every month. You know, we look at to see how much is spent and how much is left in our budget. He's still way on, he hasn't even hit 50% of his budget yet, so not that that would be hit until June, but he's way under budget at this point, still somewhere around.
That also accounts for body missing,
Under bodies.
personnel, yeah, personnel,
No,
no?
You're
No,
not talking about personnel.
no, I'm not talking about personnel line. We don't get, we don't get the personnel line. That's something that unless you actually sit down with the personnel person, because they move things, as I've seen, whatever they feel like putting into the personnel line, they'll throw into the personnel line, and it's very difficult to track. This is strictly the 300 some odd thousand that the chief is responsible for gas, for uniforms, for this, that, and the other thing. So right now, he's still, you know, considered 10 to 12% under the budget.
For 2013.
For 2030, yeah, well,
I have a quick question about the report. I was just wondering if it's customary for the police to aid residents in catching bats.
Yes, we assist residents in anything. If they have a big mouse in their house and then they're scared, we respond to pretty much anything. There's certain things that we may call a animal control officer report if there's a continued problem, but we do respond for, you know, raccoons, possums, snakes, bears, deer, a number of things. And, you know, we're basically here for your needs, and if we can't help you, we'll get the help that you need.
Any other questions on the chief's report?
just give me one more second. I have to check one of my figures, if you don't mind.
In the meantime, a point that I'd like to bring up in regards to the budget. In the past, I have asked for an update of where we stand in our budget, including personnel. I know they do a monthly report. I've asked for quarterly reports so that I can keep track of where we are with part-time salaries, and I don't seem to ever get that. I appreciate if maybe the commission can take a stance with.
I will try once again to get...
We have done this.
I've done it before. That's how I got the cost per officer. It's not an easy, you know, because of, you know, if the chair wants, I'll make an appointment with the...
You're
to
part of
sit
the
down.
budget committee.
Well, no, I just, you know, I don't want to, you know,
Yeah.
usurp the chair's authority.
No, I'm
All right, I'll go in there and I'll get you what you
dispersing
need.
it all out to everybody.
If I can get it quarterly, that would be great, and then I can at least, you know, weigh out where I am. through the
Yeah,
fiscal
there should
year.
be, there are reports that come out that give it to you. The problem, like I said, with that is if you look at those reports, they've got things in it, Chief, that unfortunately don't belong in your budget, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the personnel line, and I'll give you that same example that I always use, the dog, the stipend for the dog should be in general, not in personnel, but because it's based upon an overtime rate, they throw it into personnel. And that means once they do that, we have to pay all that other nonsense. But let me take a look and I'll get back to you on that. And I still got to find that piece of paper I'm looking for. So you have to just bear
I had a
with me.
question about the budget. I was just wondering why we spend $5,500 on ammunition.
I'm sorry, Amy, I didn't hear you.
I was just curious as to why we're spending $5,500 on ammunition.
That's not enough, but okay.
It's a bargain. Yeah, we-
I don't know what ammunition costs.
Yeah,
but
ammunition, we
seems like a lot.
budget pretty much the same amount of money. It's on state bid. We put the same amount that's for range through the course of the year, and it's $5,500. This year, it was actually going up to $8,500, and we were able to get the order in just prior to the increase that we were able to get
And
last year's prices.
This is for practicing?
It's for practice and duty ammo. It's for both. It covers the shotguns, the ARs, our handguns, we buy less expensive ammunition for the practice portion of our training. The qualifications we have to use, the actual rounds that we carry on duty.
Is there ever a surplus at the end of the year of ammunition?
It's pretty close to where we need to be. If there's a little bit more, you know, the following year, we may be, you know, a little bit short. We always have a little bit left over
Right.
because of that little fluctuation. If somebody needs to go up for a remedial shoot, anything like that. So, but we're pretty, we don't have a lot of ammunition just sitting around by the end of the year.
Right. Are weapons discharged in the course of duty very often in New Paltz?
For dispatching deer, or
Okay.
rabid raccoons and
Okay.
different animals.
Mhm.
And we have a discharge report that is filled out and turned over to the firearms instructor. You know, whenever that takes place. But that's where most of our, you know, rounds go, you know, other than the training portion of it.
Would that also include like your taser cartridges, your non-lethal rounds?
We have a different budget for that. You know, so that is in here. If you look at, we have a less lethal line.
Okay.
So it's different, but it's stored in the same location.
Mhm.
The same person that prepares the budget request does it for the tasers as well.
Also, if I can say about the ammunition, the fact that the chief got that ammunition in before time, because ammunition has gone up since the first of the year, almost 200%.
Wow.
So things that used to cost, let's say 25, 35, well, let's say 45, because that's basically the per bullet, are now close to $1. So we don't know what we're going to do for next year, but he did manage to save us a lot of money by getting that order in
This year
when
we
he
saved
did.
3,000 when we saw that, what the change was gonna be. Next year, unless, again, because they have gone up even more. But what happens is when the state bid puts in the bid process, usually they lock in for, I think it's like almost a 5-year period. And then they'll stay the same for state bid for a certain amount of time. But then once, if there's been a lot of increase, like we experienced this last time, you're gonna see that big jump. So it's going from 55 to 85, unless they don't honor it because of the change in what's going on with the ammunition. It's very difficult to get.
You know, that was a big saving, and we should, you know.
Didn't you have something else you were looking for?
Yes, I was going through the foot patrol, and I see we're down with foot patrol again. Is that because we're down on personnel?
It's down because we're down. We have a lot of training going on also this past month. We have 2 officers away for training or something.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to bring it up, is that not that we don't want to do it, but with short personnel, it becomes difficult to do.
Again,
and I
you
just
know,
think the
from
public
last
should be
year,
aware
we're
of it,
down
that's all,
3
huh?
people from where we were last year,
Yeah.
not counting the lieutenant, but the officers, one of which we gave up in this year's budget, and 2 more that have not yet been hired.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to, you know, mention to the public why, because, you know, foot patrol is the thing that everybody sees. Foot patrol is the important one. And the fact that we were going quite well until we lost personnel, we were doing a lot of foot patrol, and there's just nothing we can do if we're down people.
They are out.
I'm not saying- yeah, but-
I'm rather pleased, because that was always a complaint of mine. And I have noticed that the cars are empty, and the guys are out walking around. So that's good. I'm hoping that we'll get the guy on the bicycle.
I had one out for the parade and the regatta. So I was happy to see it too. It's nice when we have the manpower to do it. And,
Yeah.
We are hoping to see more bicycle rides this summer.
Any other questions on the chief's report? No? Okay. Evidence and weapon audit report. Bruce and Ira?
Just wanted to ask you, you know, this is the draft copy with the small typo. Is there anything other than, are there any differences?
I think I don't know.
Okay. just
I
a
know
moment.
I had the typo on it, and then I know I changed it. I don't know if there was any, I think I may have just changed the typo,
Okay,
but I'm not sure.
all right. On May 9th, Ira and
Can
I...
you speak into the mic,
Yeah,
please?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
On May 9th, Ira and I attended to the police department to conduct an audit or a survey of the armory and the evidence room. First of all, I would like to say I appreciate all of the cooperation and patience that we received during our inquiries. We spot checked weapons that were in the armory as stock weapons for serial number, for their presence. Everything was satisfactory. We spot checked by serial number the weapons that were in the officer's possession, handguns, and everything checked out just fine. We spot checked one of the police vehicles for weapons kept in the trunk, and again, everything was satisfactory, so we were happy with the results. Everything seemed to be in compliance. We did a check of the evidence room. We looked at some old evidence to make sure there was an adequate audit trail from the time that evidence had been logged in until it was either disposed of or whether it remained still within the evidence room. And everything seemed to check out. Again, looking at particular pieces of evidence, some money, drugs, weapons, etc. We found no discrepancies at all in the chain of custody of evidence. The only comment that I would like to add is that while I was impressed with what the police department has done, I think they're limited by the inadequacies of their computer system to provide the correct information accurately and timely. I know that they experienced, Detective Lucchese experienced some frustration in his inability to provide certain information that we needed their database searched for without going through a whole series of additional steps when it really should be a matter of a few simple keystrokes. I think there may be some significant issues with hardware performance as well as application performance. So that's something that we feel should be looked at much more deeply.
Well, you guys are also
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
on that too, so you're preaching to the choir.
That's right. But generally, we were very satisfied with the way things were being handled.
Yeah, great.
I just want to add a couple of things if I can, please. First of all, the security for entering those rooms was very satisfactory. You couldn't just walk into those rooms. A matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken, Chief, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in order to get into the arsenal, you have to have a thumbprint.
Yes, correct.
So it's not like, not that it's going to happen, but you need that kind of security. And the other thing I wanted to mention, because it was a problem when we got it, is that the organic refrigerator is being used to keep organic evidence in. I mean, there was a whole thing about why we spent so much money for a refrigerator, and it was because it had to be a special refrigerator for organic evidence, and it is being used, and there is organic evidence in it that is being done properly. And also, I just would like to thank Officer Sergeant Lucchese and Sergeant Butler. I mean, they were extremely helpful, extremely knowledgeable. Any question we asked, they had an answer for. It wasn't I don't know, we'll have to get back to you. And that gave me a secure feeling that these things were being handled the right way.
Thank you. I know in the past, when you completed a check like this, you would give a letter to each of them just saying that you did the compliance check and everything was in order, and a little Vataboy type thing that we can put into their file. You've done it in the past, and I'd appreciate it if you continue to do that. That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So will the chair undertake to do that?
Yeah, do you have a form that we've used in the past?
No.
We just thank
it wa-
you for
last year, when it was done by, you and myself, Randall, was the first time that, the check hadn't been done prior to that for 2 years, or something like that. We got, when we took over the commission, or came on the commission, found that the checks hadn't been done. So last year was the first time in I don't know how many years that check was done. So there is no letter, it just, it was just a simple little, we thank you for your help and everything. We found everything to be satisfactory.
If you can let me know who, I know it's Lucchese, but is it Butler? Lucchese and Butler?
I think it was Carpinelli at the police vehicle as well.
It was Carpinelli's vehicle that we examined, if you want that,
Okay.
Okay, parade committee, you want to do, or you want me to, well, Okay, yeah, look, real quickly, the chief and I, for the past 3 weeks, have been meeting every Tuesday with representatives from the town and the village boards to review the parade procedure. Bye-bye. The parade procedure for the town and the village. And you all have a copy of the proposed application as well as the instructions for the clerks in disseminating and processing information. We're not going to discuss it, but I sent it to you so that you could see those portions that deal with the police department, and many of you have given us questions to take back to our meeting on Tuesday. Don't want to discuss what's in the document because it's not really public, and I don't want to jump ahead of what the committee is doing, so that's why we're not going to go into the details of what's inside the new guidelines. So,
Nice.
yeah, well, for now. Commission files. Becky, Ira, and I, at some point, when we can coordinate schedules on a Friday, we're going to work to try and archive files that we've been collecting and put those files that need to be stored in the clerk's office for FOIL-related issues, and then ditch stuff that doesn't have to be in there, and then start organizing stuff so that we can memorialize the things that are being done so that future commissions have a record of stuff that was done in the past and that can be easily found, and it is orderly.
Yeah, right now, it's just a big, in other words, it's a copy of your packet. It goes in the file, right, Becky? It just goes in the file as a whole packet.
Yeah.
So it
it's
would be a
not,
lot easier if somebody wants to get a history of dog, for example, to be able, right? That's what
Right.
you're talking about,
Yeah.
to be able to pull out all the dog
yeah,
reports.
yeah. So, complaint form edits, I talked to Becky about that just a little before we started today. I don't think you have seen one before, but there's a complaint form for the public, Bruce, and it needs to be edited because it still has commissioners on there who
Right.
have long since
Yeah.
moved on. So it needs to be re-edited and distributed to all the places, the village, the town, and the police department, so that they have it. Becky is going to edit that, and I guess she can email it, and then people can copy it and put it up where it needs to be.
You email me one copy, I'll bring it into Carol.
Okay.
I will have the town make copies. I will go back to all the places that I have left these over the years because I want them accessible. The whole thing with the new commission, you know, what's in Randall got, and we want them accessible to everybody. We don't want people to have to come down to the police department if they feel uncomfortable. They should be able to come here to Town Hall. I know we have them in Village Hall, in the libraries. As I've said before, the only place we can't put them is on the college campus.
Did somebody once mention that they would be available on the town website?
Yes, they were.
They were.
They still
They
are.
were, yeah, they were a PDF on the, they
Right.
were a PDF on the town website. So,
Is the website still down?
the website is down, they're fixing it.
Okay.
But, so people know, right now, they are available on the police website.
On the police website?
So you can get them on the police website, you know, download it, make a copy of it, and bring it into the town hall and give it to the supervisor or the supervisor's clerk to make sure that we get it. Or bring them to the police department, it's up to you, but some people don't feel comfortable like that. So anybody who doesn't feel comfortable, you know, feel free to bring them into see the supervisor's office or the supervisor's clerk.
They can mail them in?
They can mail them in, it's just that when you mail them in, you never know what's going to happen. If, you know, somebody opens the mail and who knows where it goes, and it may go to the police department, and then we don't see a copy of it and everything. I mean, you can mail them in, but preferably, in order for the commission to be involved the right way, it should go to the supervisor's office so that we know we get a copy of it, because then it comes to the commission, and then the commission gives it to the police department.
And just so that you know, the way that like, as he just said, it goes to the chief, he does an investigation, and then he lets us know how he's handled it, and we can chime in as to what we think needs to be done, or supplement whatever it is that he decides to do
Right.
with the particular complaint. Did you, Amy, were you going to
Well,
ask?
I was just going to say that if we're going to have it on the town website, we might as well try to get it on the village website as well.
Good idea.
Yeah,
If they'll put it on,
If
sure.
they will. And I was also wondering if we have specific instructions as to where our constituents can drop these off.
Yes.
Perhaps we should put that on the form as well.
It's on the form.
It is, about bringing it
About
to
where to
town
bring
hall.
them, yeah, about bringing them to town hall, mailing them, or whatever. The instructions on what to do with the form are on the form. I'm just saying, for the preference of my own personal preference, I would rather them take 2 minutes to bring them into the town hall, because obviously it's just a serious thing and we take it very seriously, than put it in the mail and have it get lost and run into a situation where we never get something.
I would like to say that, I hope that the public does feel comfortable to bring the forms in, because we are more of the friendly approaching department, I'd like to think. But in the event that they don't, yes, there are other ways that it can be brought in, and it's nice to have that ability. I also want to just point out that not only is it a complaint form, but it's a complaint/compliment/suggestion form. So this form is multi-use.
Okay, it's still your mic, because anything else on the complaint, suggestion, compliment forms? Okay. Can you give us an update on the anonymous call line that we had discussed?
The tips line.
Tips line that we had,
I know there's 2 companies that we've been looking at. I don't know what the final result is. Detective Sergeant Lucchese had another sit-down demo with another company. They both offer some good things. I don't know what the final outcome is. I do know that one of the negatives to it is, that we're learning from speaking to the other PDs that have them in service, is they get a lot of anonymous tips that don't pan out to anything. So they're finding that there's a lot more effort being placed on follow-ups on these tips that end up being nothing, or no documenting to the case.
That was my concern that I expressed last time, that it can really eat up a lot of manpower quickly. And I remember the article that we had looked at from Kingston, even though it was a new program, but I think they had it for a couple of months at least, and it hadn't yielded, I don't believe it yielded any arrests.
Not much, no.
So that's what you really have to look at, that hidden cost in terms of manpower and the distraction sometimes of taking you away from things that may be more urgent.
Yes, yeah. And because it's anonymous, you may get more, I hate to say bogus, but bogus-type calls. Wild goose chase. So, but we are still going to look at it once we have the final numbers, and, we can talk about it at the commission and see if we want to take that step.
any questions on that? No? If you, I don't know, sir, you walked in after public comment, and I don't know if you were here for public comment, and Paul, I don't know.
I'm actually working, and I tried to get a little early. I was here a little earlier, and I had to leave. I wanted to speak to you, actually, somebody referred me to speak to you.
Okay, after the meeting?
I don't know what time you think this
Oh, boy.
Just ended?
Yeah, we may,
If we have executive session, it could be
we may
late.
be here till 9:30, 10. So-
I should come back later. Would
Yeah.
that be okay?
Yeah, I'm sorry?
Would it be okay if I come back later?
Oh, absolutely, if we're, yeah.
Speak to you, I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I'll try to come back later.
sure, okay.
When you say you're referring to the chair? Did you say you wanted to speak directly to the chair?
Or the full commission.
Because you want to speak to the full commission.
Because you can do that now if you'd
You can do
like.
that. That's why I was
I mean,
asking.
you're welcome to come down and speak to us now. You
That's-
don't have to come back. I don't want to inconvenience you
That's why
unless you
I was-
wanted to have a private conversation
That's why I asked.
with me about
It's okay
something.
if I can speak?
Yeah, absolutely, please.
Okay, my name is Angel Hernandez.
Could you speak into the microphone if you would, please, Mr. Shawns?
Okay, my name is Angel Hernandez. I live and own 120 South Ohio Road in New Paltz. And I'm having an issue with my properties. Well, I have more than one. 259 Red 32 North is also my property. And I'm having an issue on both properties. The issue has stemmed close to like 14 years. And I have been complaining that long to the police department. to the point where 99% of my situations, like my burglaries, whatever I want to call them, I don't report them anymore. Normally, when I do report them and I find out there's something missing is when I look for something, I can't find it. So I don't know when it happened, if it happened 3 days before or the last time I put it away. For example, last Sunday, I believe it was, I was on the other property taking a truck apart. I just realized that a differential, which is the rear end of another truck, was missing. It was removed for a reason, you know. Now I have to figure out another thing, something else. And for whatever reason, I don't feel that the police department, unless they're doing something secretive to me, they're not following up on this. I'm a taxpayer. I've been in this town since 1974. I did not come to this town to do bad things. Actually, I've done a lot of good things in this town. And I feel that I'm being ignored. And like I said, I don't want to complain every single time because it's embarrassing to me to have, you know, I feel like I'm speaking like a crazy person, you know, to call every 3 days, every 2 days to the police department and say, hey, I got another thing missing, you know. When did it was, I don't know, last time I seen it was a week ago, you know. I don't feel pretty silly doing that. On the good side is that Sunday while I was removing that, a policeman did slow down and he says, oh, it's you, okay, you know, so like maybe they are keeping an eye, I don't know. But this has been ongoing. All my vehicles have the doors broken. For the last 4 years, this vehicle here I have to open with a bar. 2 weeks ago, even that bar was missing. You know, I mean, this is a joke. You know, I just had to put new locks again. And this is like, I mean, sometimes I have a big wad of keys, which I don't have with me now. I left them in the car. At one point, I went and I left them in the car, and the next thing I know, it was missing. So that means I have to put keys on all my vehicles again, the house, and not that keeps them away. You know, and I can do anything. I mean, I can work on cars, I work on houses, I can pick locks if I wanted to, you know. I can do anything with my hands, aside from having a degree and have occupied and held professional positions. But this person, this person is better than me. And so I'm saying, 14 years ago, when I purchased this property, it was happening. Before I even moved in, it was happening. Could this be a teenager that already became right now he's working on his divorce. Forget about college, you know. Who is this? Who's, you know, so I'm suspicious. Is this an investigation? I mean, I don't know what this is. I can't stop. They take papers. They take a couple of tools. My brother I'm Hispanic, and my brother just got me a collection of Latin music. And, you know, stuff that's hard for us to find up here. I just realized that in my 13 new discs, one of them is missing from the jacket. I live alone, and my dog doesn't have access to anything. So I'm saying, why did you just take the whole thing? Why take 3 sockets? Why take the whole thing? Why take half my paperwork? Why take all my paperwork? I owned and operated a discount taxi here in New Paltz for a little over 8 years. All my tax information, good thing I had an accountant who kept copies of it. All my tax information is missing, you know. I don't know if this is neighbors that want to chase me out. I really don't know what the situation is. I am unhappy that I purchased a boarding house in New Paltz, and it was an existing boarding house when I purchased it. And the town took the zoning away from me. I couldn't open it up. That's why the building is now unoccupied. It's a 3-story building. I mean, I pumped a lot of money into it. It has 45 windows. Imagine heating that. I pumped a lot of money into it. I haven't been able to open it. So it is in the condition that it's in, not because I don't know how to paint it or not. I mean, I put a brand new furnace, brand new roof, brand new plumbing all around. The town said you can't open it. So the property is just there, not doing anything. I cut the grass.
Is that being vandalized?
That and the property here is being vandalized. I'm occupying one, the other one is unoccupied. I go there every day to check my mail because I receive my mail there. But they're not occupied. Now, I did mention to the police department, I mean, at one point, I had dissolved my business. I was experiencing health issues, and I spent the winter in Arizona. When I returned, the very next day, one of my vehicles was missing from this property on here on 32. And I thought the town must have been maybe trying to get a hold of me all winter because most of those vehicles were not registered. I said they must have wanted me to remove some of those vehicles, you know, that junkyard thing, you know. So I came to the town. I said, you know, I got a vehicle missing. The next day when I found out that it was gone. And they said, call the police. We haven't done that. Like that, 9 vehicles went. They took like 5 in 1 week, and then, I don't know, 2 or 3 another time. I remember one time, I put a school bus in there to block it. Was that great truck was there, and then I had a school bus parked there too. And I said, well, good, they can't take the cars now. One day on my way to Kingston, I look back, the school bus is gone. Turn around, school bus was gone. Now what was left was a brand-new Jetta that even Officer Koch remembers, because he told me, oh, you could have got all these miles out of it, you know? And it was a really important car to me. And I said that the school bus is missing, and all I could do was bring the titles, of which Officer McCutcheon there's only like 4 or 5 of them in file, because for whatever reason, at one point they even told me, we don't believe this is really happening, and that property is not in your name, so you got to call the owner of the property. I had to call my brother to call him, and nothing is happening anyway, you know. And I'm saying that to say that I had the Jetta there, and I was going to be out of town the next day. And I called the police department. I said, please, he said, well, we can't park a police car there. I said, but can you please do something? Because I'm pretty sure that these cars are not being used. They're probably going and cashed in for junk. So some, you know, they'll say fill an affidavit, and they don't ask for anything unless somebody spots it. At that point, they'll say, oh, this guy bought it. But if you know, they crush them, nobody knows, you know. And I said, in the morning I called and I said, look, I know they're probably going to take this car if they're going to take it right around soon, you know, but I'm too far away. But by the time I get to Newport, which will be 9 in the morning, I'm sure that car will be gone. Sure enough, the car was gone. I said, can we put a decoy car there? Can we put a car with a GP? I'll pay for it. No, we can't do that. So all these years, I have no peace on either property. They have, in the other property, they stole the refrigerator. This is not even reported. They stole the refrigerator. They stole the stove, you know, I mean, the little wood stove, I mean.
So essentially, your issue is your property is being vandalized,
And
or your
stolen.
things are being stolen, and we haven't caught anyone?
I don't know
Or-
what's being done. I mean, I have no satisfaction. I have no investigation. The last time that I spoke to someone was not the last time, I also spoke to Scott Sheffield, but I spoke to Officer Judd, who said, no, we have to send this up to the detectives. So I called and called and called. I don't know, 4 or 5 calls, 4 or 5 days later, I think I spoke to Officer Sutton. Officer Sutton says, well, I have to speak to Officer Judge. This has been going on 3 months now before I come here on just that issue. And years go by, 14 years are gone.
Okay. Chief, I think we've talked about this a little bit because it was forwarded to us from the supervisor. Do you want to?
Well, I know that the detectives were looking at it with the officers, and I know the officers did whatever follow-up they can with no leads to any suspect. I believe you had said even you had cameras on the property,
Yeah.
but nothing showed up on the cameras of individuals coming on property.
I did suggest to the police department, because here I have more control. On this side, I don't have control, but on this side, I know that it'll be easy. They'll steal a car right away on this side. Whoever it is either somebody close by or somebody who, I don't know, maybe somebody I know. But I can't get that, you know, I can't get the police department to work with me on that. And I said, I don't mind the expense. I don't mind purchasing the GPS or whatever from my end, because I would like to catch who this person is. Maybe then whoever he knows that may be, involved with it also will stop. Because I can't stop them. You guys have not been able to stop them. You know, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't move. I can't sell this property. I would like to move. I can't move.
Yeah, one of the issues is because of the sporadic and timing of when these occur. They're spread out. It's not like, it's every Friday night so we can plan something. And sometimes it's months, and sometimes it's, like you said yourself, it can be several weeks before you even notice something missing.
But I noticed
which-
things missing
Yeah.
before several weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you see something there this morning and you go home and it's gone, evidence is easier to gather. You might get a footprint, you might get some fingerprints.
I've never had anyone take fingerprints or take footprints, and I've even asked. I said, oh, no, we actually, this is too, I was told like 10 years ago, that's too expensive. The police department doesn't get into that. But of course, I've been here since 1974, and I either know everybody or people know of me, and, word gets around. And it is done for other people.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know why it's never
No,
been done.
we've been doing fingerprinting. I don't know why somebody would have told you we
Never
don't
been-
do
never
it.
been done for me, and I haven't
Some
even
officers,
requested it.
some officers aren't certified through the crime tech school yet. Some of them are newer, but most of them now, we try to train all our officers in doing basic
Well,
fingerprint lifts.
actually, my intent with this meeting is to find out if something is being done, and if not, because, I'm a taxpayer, and I'm not happy with the amount of taxes that I pay.
Do you have a phone
I
number?
I feel ignored right now.
Actually,
like-
yeah. No, don't give me a number. Actually, if you want to write it down, because you're on TV.
I'm feeling like, ignored that all these years are going by. By now, we could have done something by now. I mean, I'm willing to spend the money and put a vehicle, take a chance that the vehicle will get stolen. I know it will. I am 100% sure, I bet my life that it'll be stolen. And with equipment in it, then we'll find out where it's going. We'll find out what's
Well,
taking.
one of the things, we should discuss this again, not on camera, but we can talk about different things that we can do for an investigation. Again, you don't want to talk about those things on TV.
So you'll set up a meeting?
I'll set up a meeting with Mr. Hernandez, yeah.
and We'll try and get that squared away
Yes.
for you?
Yep.
I appreciate it.
All right?
So,
This is yourself?
yeah, that's so.
Very good.
And you
Anybody
guys
have
have it
any
on file also,
questions?
but yes, myself.
Okay.
Ira? Al?
Yeah, I don't, you know.
Okay. So you and the chief will huddle?
I'll be
and,
happy to. I really want this
He'll
solved.
see what he can do to help you out and perhaps catch this person or persons. And maybe your stuff will stop disappearing, let's hope.
I appreciate it.
All
Thanks a
right.
lot. Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Did you, come on up.
Thank you. Sorry, the meeting started at 7?
Yep.
No. I tried to get on the town website to find out,
Yeah, it doesn't, it's shut down.
and
That's why go ahead.
my name is Paul Brown.
Speaking to the
Chief.
microphone, please.
Well, all right. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. Chief, how are you?
Pretty good, sir. How are you doing?
Fine. Members of the commission, there's three things I wanted to do. One is thank you for your service. I've been remiss in not coming to earlier meetings. You're responsible for the biggest expenditure in our budget, and you have serious responsibilities, and I think they've always been carried out. I've lived here since '69, 44 years, with maturity, wisdom, and judgment, certainly in the past few years. And I know Ira and respect him and admire him. Thank you. But all of you, I thank you for your service, and that's just to make up for past, not saying that.
Thank you.
The second issue is I thank the commission and the chief where you've helped to look at the possible costs on the proposed development of the 732 rental unit on Chestnut, on North or South Route 32. I think you're on to uncovering the real facts. I'm not sure why some people, including the planning board chair, say the facts haven't been available. I know they are being made available. I know this commission is on top of it. I think it's more than a lack of communication. I think it's a lack of willingness to listen to true information. So I applaud your efforts, and I hope you will continue to gather the information and present it in a public forum so that all the citizens can know what the potential costs to our police, of course, and our other emergency services are. I thank you for those efforts. They're not going unnoticed by me and many, many people, but we all live lives, as you know, and have other things. So the third thing is a longer-term issue that I've become concerned about, and it started when I served as a coach to the committee on the New Paltz Police Department space, and I had a chance to get to meet the chief, get to know him better, and the past chief of police, and the needs of the police department. And I think the town should be very proud of the place where our police are. In fact, everybody else is jealous now. And you can't believe how many people have come to me and said, well, when are we going to start a commission for this group or that group or a committee? But I worked very closely with Dave Lent, who has a lot of institutional knowledge and memory, and I saw him the other day, the person I admire and respect a lot, and we were talking about the future of the police department and this possible consolidation. But I'm not concerned about the consolidation. The police department will be here, and it's already a unified service. But I am concerned about the possibility, and I have no facts, except a lot of people tell me things, but I know the chief knows the facts and the commission will know the facts, that perhaps somewhere in the neighborhood of 25% of the activity of the police force, the resources, are spent, and rightfully so, where they're needed in the center of the village. And there are many feelings amongst village people, village residents and townspeople, But we're all looking for ways to save costs, and many of us are looking for ways to preserve the integrity of our police department and our protection and the safety we all feel. There is a concept that I know is well known to the Commission and to many people, but it hasn't emerged as a real issue, and that is a business improvement district. And I think it's been clouded again by ineffective politicians. I'm not talking only about elected officials. I reserve the word politicians for less than effective elected officials. I think we have elected officials, we have politicians, and then we have leaders. I frankly see a lack of leaders at the political level, but I see leadership coming from other volunteer boards such as this one. And if I make you uncomfortable by being critical of some of the elected officials, too bad for you and too bad for them. But I've lived here 44 years, and I've given up hope that they are going to be the truth staters and the fact finders. So I come to you as an appointed commission, and maybe you're like me, and maybe you're like Ira. What are they going to do to me? If I'm critical and I'm wrong, I'm a voice crying in the wilderness. And if I'm right, maybe someone will listen. So the leadership will continue to come from citizens and appointed people unless we elect some leaders. I see none on the horizon. So a business improvement district is a worthwhile concept and would help to ameliorate the various political issues around the cost. I don't hear enough talk about the benefit of our police department and the emergency services, but I hear a lot about the costs. In many big cities and smaller towns, there are mechanisms that encourage or force the commercial establishments that are open after 8 o'clock at night to bear their fair share of the cost through the mechanism of a business improvement district. I don't pretend to be an expert on it, but I at least feel an effort towards gathering the true facts and the true mechanisms so that if 25% of the force is spent supporting the for-profit businesses in town, and I'm not talking about the rental owners, but I served for 7 years on the Board of Assessment Review, and I know that all these residents and businesses are categorized in different buckets. So you can easily gather a group of people who benefit disproportionately from the police services. This won't make me a friend in some of the pubs in town, but I do my fair share to add to their profits. If we disproportionately support their profit-making enterprises, then they should pay their fair share of the police and emergency services. That's the simple concept. I can go no farther. I know no more. I see that leadership could come from the police commission, regardless of consolidation, if we want to protect our emergency services and ensure the integrity of what we have. And keep the morale up of our first responders. I know that some of you on this committee have, for over the years and more recently, inspired people in the community to say, we should pay attention to what the police commission is doing. I'm one of them. And leadership could come. Most politicians are brought kicking and screaming to a proper understanding of what is needed for the community. They're not the leaders. They're followers, and they want to get reelected. You only have to look at the debacle of this 1.5 to 2 years of wasted effort, thousands of hours, hundreds of thousands of dollars, on a plan for consolidation that has gone awry. They were so focused on the political winnings that they forgot this has to be a legal process. And now the spin has begun. I am taking this opportunity to say some things in public that I have no other venue to say, and you'll have to put up with that because you have a public comment session. I'm coming to an end. My message is simple. I thank you. I thank you for your efforts with regard to the true costs for the for-profit Wilmerite project, and I hope you will look into the possibilities and the importance of a business improvement district to the future of one of the finest police departments we have in this county and maybe in this state. And I thank you again for your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
No, I just want to respond to Paul. Thank you, Paul. Just so you should be aware, The BID concept from the commission has been going on for years, because we've done surveys that show that the bulk of the services are in the downtown business district. We've got the reports, we got all of this thing. For whatever the reason that the village decided they didn't want a police force, they just wanted, outside patrols, that's the village business. But the commission has to look out for the taxpayers and make sure that the police department has the resources to do what's necessary. If you look at forgetting consolidation, non-consolidation, the report of the Finance Committee was a recommendation that the town, because the village, whether they want to do it or not, because again, the village has to deal with the store owners and the business owners and everything else, and it's a lot more difficult, but the town could put a bid in, and Susan's been looking into the legal aspect of just putting a bid in and saying, okay, well, village, do what you want, but the town, for its tax purposes, is going to put a bid in. That requires a vote, but it is being looked at. I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad you brought it up, but just to let you know, it is being worked on. As a matter of fact, we're going into, I've been looking into what's called an Article 19. And the difference is that's done by assessment. And what that means is that if you put a BID in and you have to put it from Prospect to Mulberry Street, everybody gets hit. And it's not fair to the guy who closes at 6 o'clock. But using an Article 19, there may be a way, and we're investigating it, for us to say, well, you know what, you're open till 10 o'clock, your assessment's going to be A, you're open till 6 o'clock, you stay at the same assessment. But I certainly thank you for your input on it, because it is a very important issue. And like it or not, with an Article 19, landlords have to pay their share too. Because you're talking about the fire department, you're talking about the rescue squad. And, I'm not saying it's like somebody saying at 3 o'clock in the morning, but under the Article 19, they can be assessed through the assessor at X amount of dollars. It's not the same thing. So just want to let you know it is being looked at.
Very happy to hear it. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any comments? No? Okay. And it sort of kind of leads, perfect segue into our next agenda item, Park Point. Quickly, the chief and I, 2 weeks ago, we had a meeting with the chair of the planning board, Dave Clauser, the attorney for the planning board, I believe, and Susan, and we went over some numbers that we had provided. There were some additional items that they asked us to gather for them. Some of that Ira has, and when I finish, he can hand those out and talk to us a little bit about them, and there's also a map to go with it.
Now, the map is for the other thing.
It's for your calls, right?
That's for the calls. You're talking about Park Point. The map's for the calls. Park Point...
Yeah, that was one of the things that they had asked us for. They've asked us in our meeting, they asked for call, yeah.
You're putting the calls with Park Point.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of the calculations for Park Point.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, they asked us for a number of things. I think the chief had stepped out for the lunch at that point because we had finished the major portion of the meeting. But what had happened was they wanted an estimate of the number of calls that the police department has handled over time. And interestingly enough, the rescue squad is able to do that, and then they also can break down the number of people, the age groups of the people, and so on and so forth, and we can't do that. And so we have not yet totally finished with our calculation of numbers because, as you said, our computer system and everything else, it's more of a manual labor kind of process for us to accomplish everything that we need to accomplish, but we're going to get it done, and we'll do it in our time so that it is right and as accurate as possible. So right now, Ira, I think, you've seen the numbers that Ira gave to us before. We're still at that $12.5 million.
$12.5 million.
$12.5 million. And then I know that during our meeting, Susan and the chief had talked about some figures, and she actually used officers starting at a rate of some $50,000, is that?
Yes.
Right, which is $10,000 or $9,000 less than, more than what we had used. And I think her back-of-the-napkin calculation over a 25-year period with $30,000 or $40,000, basically it was $90,000 times 3 for 3 officers over 25 years was like $6.1 million.
Six and change.
6 and change. But the concern for me and Ira with those figures is that they don't calculate how the benefits increase exponentially over time with the increase in the salary, and it was just basically a flat $90,000 times 3 over 25 years. And to me, it wasn't a realistic figure when you try to factor in everything that we need to factor in when you pay for the cost of an officer. And I guess one of the questions I have for you, is there any value or benefit to hiring? I mean, would an officer join our force at $50,000? I mean, would you hire somebody at $50,000?
No, if you take somebody from another agency, they would get their time on. So if somebody comes from another agency, they have 3 years or 4 years on the job for that, and we take them as a lateral, the lateral will carry over their experience and their time, so they would come up with a higher salary. I believe when that was done with the supervisor, she just took an average salary, basically went with an average salary, times added the benefit to it, times it by 3 for 3 officers, and then times that by a number of years without the inflation, without the percentage increases, and
Without any raises, which
Yeah,
is
it's just-
kind of silly.
I think that was just a initial onset is what she did. I don't think it was anything I don't know if they were looking at a calculation that they're asking for or that we're looking at now. I think it's just like, that was like a ballpark. I don't think it was a final
It
report
was,
in any way.
well, it came out, it was just like somebody pulled a number out of the hat and said, this makes sense. I mean, if we look at it, when we looked at it, there's no way that 3 is going to work. You need 4. Because you have 1 extra officer per shift. There's no getting away from that when you're talking about 700 more people.
You're talking minimum.
Yeah, and you need a 4th to cover, you got Saturday, Sunday, and overtime. I mean, it's nice to say, well, it's only going to cost us this, and, to be very honest, the way I look at these things, and I'm still not happy with the limitation of the number, because it's a very difficult number to get. But it's not a number that says, okay, there's not going to be any raises, there's not going to be any increase in benefits, there's not going to be, the taxes aren't, the taxes that employees have to pay, because in my figures include that, includes the state insurance, includes the federal insurance, it includes the UPD or whatever that thing is that they pay for, when you get sick or something, I forget what it's called.
Disability insurance?
No, it includes that too, but there's this place that you go to for stress.
EAP.
EAP, and there's a whole bunch of other things other than the simple salaries and pension. Now, as I said before, I mean, I'm still not happy because I think I'm low, but if you look at what happened to the pensions between 2011 and 2012, it went up 33%. Now, that's not saying it's going to go up another 33% because we don't know how it's done, because the town just gets a bill. They get a bill from the state, because it's all run by the state. They get a bill from the state that says, you owe us, as in the case of 2012, what was it, close to $900,000.
If you took the logic and looked back 25 years, could anybody have determined what present expenses would be? Could anybody have anticipated that with any formula algorithm? It's an impossibility.
Right.
And it's probably equally impossible to extrapolate, based on all of the variables and uncertainties, what 25 years may bring as well.
Yeah.
Nobody will be unhappy if it costs less, but it's a big mistake to underestimate and not build in a significant margin of error
Inflation.
at
Very
this point.
significant.
I mean, I didn't take into account another a 66% increase in pension. That could happen next year. That could happen 4 years down the line. And we're talking about one officer based upon increases. I just used the 3% increase. Might as well, everybody might as well look at these so they know what I'm talking about. You can take those, and this is the zone reports.
Is this to pass around?
Yeah,
Or is it-
yeah, no, just pass them around. And this is the zone, the number of calls, and we can go over that too, and the zones, so.
One of each.
One of each. But it's, you know, it's easy to play with the figures when you don't have something concrete.
And it's easy to make the figures fit the presumption.
Yeah, I mean, I had to use a certain, what I used was,
But we're using what we know now.
right, what we know now, and what
we
I
know
did
now
was
may
I
not
basically,
be
Exactly right.
5 years from now, what we, you know.
I used the 3% across-the-board increase, because basically that's what they've been getting. Are they going to get 4? I don't know. Are they going to get none? You don't know. But you use the 3% because that's been the average increase over the last number of years. And the percentage of, the total percentage of overhead was 66% for 2011. So I basically said, and that was, you know, and then, you know, because of the increase in salaries, it doesn't get the thing. So basically, I increased those by 2 or 3% a year. If we get another 99, if we get another 66%, it throws the figures all off. And from a taxpayer standpoint, you know, we have to look to make sure that our people are covered. We have to make sure that if it comes out to be, instead of, let's say, 12.5 million, if it comes out to be 15 or 16 million, that we're not going to be cut short. The taxpayers aren't going to get hurt, and then we're going to have to cut back on the police because we can't afford it. I mean, you're talking about a lot of money here for just, you know, for a private company. You know, this is not like, and they're not paying taxes. This is what the whole thing with me is, you know, they're not paying taxes. I mean, I hate to get on my high horse, but they got a special consideration to allow dormitories to get a pilot program. But what happens when they don't fill it and they bring outside people in? Are they going to pay this? Well, we'll pay little taxes on those or per student? No, what's going to happen is that it's going to wind up paying the pilot, and they're going to wind up, you know, living off the taxpayers. I mean, what happens if they don't fill the place up and everything else? It's totally wrong for them to have a pilot. They should be paying their taxes the same as everybody else. They're in the town, so they wouldn't pay. The village pays, on an average right now, my last calculation, roughly 3% of assessed value for taxes. That's roughly what you'll wind up paying. That includes the school, and that also includes the county taxes. It comes to about 3%. The town is a little bit less, but, you know, on a property is going to be assessed at, you know, 40, 50, 60 million dollars. Pay your fair share. It's like the businesses. Pay your fair share. You want all this protection. I mean, and you're not talking about, you're talking about things that have to be done by the town police. I mean, they may have their own little guys, security, walking up and down to stop people from coming into the building, but it's not going to stop when they have a fight. It's not going to stop if there's drugs on the premise. It's not. They're still going to have to call our police force, and that's why we came up with 4 people and not 3.
Well, the other
Any other questions? You know, anybody wants?
The other thing, and to supplement what you have, is in the meeting that we were in, I was told that if they were unable to rent those units to students, they would be allowed to rent them to just regular folks. But then they would, in fact, pay tax
on those units.
On those units.
Right, and we're going to
So-
have to sit there and say, oh, wait a minute, he's a student, he's not a student, or we got to pay tax. It's not, it would never work. You know, you would never be able to determine who
I'm
was a
just
student.
relaying the information.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying,
I'm not-
it's like the other information we keep getting, like when Wilmerite said, oh, the campus police will take care of that, and it turns out, when we checked it out, oh, no, they're not going to take care of it. You know, it's this typical information we're getting, and, you know, when I hear the things, and the chair knows, I said this to him, you know, when I hear that they couldn't get information, I say to myself, they never asked. They asked Wilmerite to come up with figures. They never asked the police commission to come up with figures. Randall asked the ambulance corps to come up with figures. Isn't it amazing how Randall set up this program with the emergency services? All of a sudden, this so-called information that wasn't available became available just because somebody asked. So the whole thing just doesn't sit right with me, because I mean, it's the village that's going to get, handed. They're going to wind up, the village is going to wind up like a Woodland Pond situation where those people are going to have to cover it, and it's wrong. It should be covered by a corporation that's making money. Again, you're looking at a student, and he's going to come in, and let's say they're going to charge him $50 a month for rent. I'm just using a figure. And they're going to have to pay taxes of 10% on that $50. So instead of charging them $50, they'll charge them $55. Mommy and daddy aren't going to care about that because they want the kid to be here. And that's the whole point. It's not as if, and who cares if they lose money? I'm not in the business of making sure that private businesses make money. I'm sorry, but I feel very strongly about this, about taking advantage of taxpayers.
Well, I can tell you that Steve and I were in a meeting with the chief and the president of the Police Officers Union in New Paltz, and I was delighted to hear that the commission came up in their internal meeting, and they were extremely happy that we're on this horse and we're riding it, and that we're paying attention to it. So, and the chief has also said that it's good that we're looking at this and trying to make sure that the department is protected. And to echo, it's funny to echo Bruce, it's one of the things that I said in the meeting. It's almost like a couple on the back of the Titanic holding hands watching the ripples and in total bliss without knowledge of the iceberg that's at the other end of the boat that they're heading into. And that's, kind of sort of how I feel about this, because we don't know where it can go, and I just don't think it's accurate, and people are being as forthright as they possibly can be, and that's just my opinion.
As I joke to somebody, if what they're doing with the signs is any example of how they're going to operate, we got a problem, because they're not even buying their own signs, say Wilmerite. They're making little stickers and putting it over the anti-Wilmerite signs. So it gives you a rough idea how they're going to operate. They'll operate on everybody else's money.
Anybody else have any comments on Park Point?
Well, the only thing is I want to explain.
Oh, yeah.
I want to explain this because it's a little complicated, and I want.
And there should be two maps, and I think there's one for the village and one for the town.
One for the village, one for the T zones, and one for the B zones.
There should be two maps.
So it should be two maps.
I've got just one.
And
I have the village. Is there an extra
two?
town? Is extra town there?
yeah, y'all can share them and pass. No, keep them. You can keep those. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have one?
Basically, the chair asked me to get the number of calls for 2012, which I sat down with the chief. He ran me a computer report of the number of calls for each zone, which are the first two columns. Just for everybody's edification, Zone 6 is part of the business district.
The number of calls and how long a period?
1 year.
1 year.
However, I want everybody to understand, please, this is the number of calls. This is not the service provided, this is the number of calls, because the computer will not give us the service provided. So what this means is, for example, you get one call to a bar downtown, it's counted as one call in Zone 6. You can wind up with 5 officers and 3 cars. You can get one call in the town, which is a lockout, which requires 1 officer for 5 minutes. I never liked the calls, but that's what was asked for, because calls don't tell us manpower. Calls just say, Harry called here, and there's a fight going on, and we dispatched 5 officers and 3 cars and the dog and everything else, and it doesn't...
Might I add another limitation to our software?
Yes, well, and what you're looking at is in terms of the 2009 calls, that was a report that was generated for the town board, which, if you look at it, it's something that doesn't make sense, because according to this, and I went over to the chief, we couldn't figure out why in 2009, this was just my check to see whether the calls were in line. You know, I just, before I'm going to release anything, I want to have some kind of backup to what I'm doing. If you look at the 2009 calls, there were 2,800 calls more. We don't know why. Again, because the software won't... Something had to happen, of course, because if you look at that's why I just got the total number of calls for 2010, 2011, and 2012. If you look at those at 17,000 and 16,000, you see they're fairly close to the 15.5 that 2012. So I can accept that figure more or less. Right, and the reason that the 2012 figures per the chief's computer is higher is because the chief's computer includes out-of-zone service, so it should be higher. In other words, 15,500 calls were within the zones, broken down the town and village zones, and the others just out of zones. That's where they go to Gardner for a dog, or somebody left a door open or something along that lines. So again, that's within the realm of feasibility. What happened in 2009? No idea. It's like... very strange, and that's why I sat down with the chief for a second time. I just didn't like those figures. The other figures are in line. That figure is way out of line. And if you look at it, the other zone, if you look at Zone 6, is, you know, and then you look at Zone 7, which are your 2 major zones, your business-type zones, they're down, you know, almost a whole lot. So something was going on, whether it's a computer problem. When they drew this report, remember, they drew this report, in 2009, right, Chief? Yeah. So who knows what was going on with the computer? Who knows how the request was made?
Well, no, I think when we looked at the numbers for 2009, there was a tremendous amount more calls for 2009. And we went back all the way to 2000 and looked at every year, and there...
Well, that's what I said, yeah.
There was a jump in 2009, which could happen. You know, I mean, it is a big number, big increase, and then the following year comes back down again. So, you know, was it just a very busy year is what it comes out to look like, because there's no mistakes in case numbers, there's no errors. That's the amount of calls that we were logged.
That's why I'm comfortable with the 15.5, only because it's in line. I mean, if the others had been out of line too, we would have... I mean, there is a problem with the computer and getting information from it that we need. And, I mean, as the chief knows, sometimes we'll ask for this information, and the computer will sit there and say, yeah, well, I'm going to give you that like I'm going to give you a stack of hay. It sits there and, you know, tries to generate, and when it's trying to generate, who knows what it drops off.
Any questions on the quote-unquote calls for service?
Again, it's calls for service. Please understand that. It's not the calls, it's the calls for service. It's Harry calling up and saying, I got a lockout, can you please help me? And they come down. That is a call for service. It's the bar calling, I got a riot here, can you help me? And they send 12 officers. It's calls of service. That's what was asked for, and that's what we got. Hopefully we'll get a new computer and we'll be able to do more.
Any questions? Any comments? Okay. PBA lieutenant contract. Well, we still don't have a lieutenant. How long has it been?
Going on 10 months.
10 months. So the contract negotiations with the PBA and the lieutenant have...
The town.
The town and the lieutenant. You know, they had a conversation, was that end of March, wasn't it?
Yes.
The end of March, and we haven't continued those conversations yet. And the same thing with the PBA. I don't think they've gotten back. They haven't proposed anything to counteroffer the stuff that was originally talked about. So
The PBA attorney and the labor attorney for the town, neither of them have contacted the other to say, let's have another date, let's share some thoughts, proposals. So it's in a holding pattern basically until one or both try to, or attempt to do that. As far as the lieutenant's contract goes, I just spoke with the supervisor again the other day, because there hasn't been any effort to even speak to him to see if he's, would possibly take interested in a contract that they're looking to offer. Hopefully, she said that she'll talk with the board again to hopefully set up that date so they can sit down and at least put a proposal out to him and see if he'll accept it or if he'll make an offer back or whatever would happen. But right now, it's been 10 months since we did the interviews, told him that Rob Lucchese, who's our detective sergeant, that he was selected to be our lieutenant. And we sat at a meeting one night when they were going to approve it, and he was told that they have to talk about it a little bit more and talk about a contract. So, 10 months, I think, is a very long time. A baby could have been born. So, my lieutenant's not in position yet, but a baby could have been born. So, anyway, hopefully the town board will look at it and, put somebody in place, put it in place sooner, or at least make the effort to meet with them.
And in the interim, you're shifting things around and adjusting personnel to
Yeah, as we
Try
discussed,
and-
as we discussed last month, we talked about putting someone maybe in the detective position in order to allow Lucchese to do a little bit more administrative work to help out a little bit on that end. We haven't done it yet because he's been busy. The other detective's been in training for a couple of weeks, so we have to manage which way we are now the best we can.
Just an aside, since we're talking about sort of personnel stuff. Steve and I, along with the chief and Dan Carpinelli, who is the president of the union, PBA, we sat down today to talk about some things, and it was a really, really good meeting. It was really, really good. And I think it perhaps is going to be a start of perhaps a monthly meeting, hopefully.
Monthly. We have enough monthly.
It was an opportunity for them to ask us questions. It was an opportunity for him, there was already some spin on, the detective's position and, what the chief was doing, and we were able to explain to them exactly what the commission's intent was. And I think he seemed satisfied with what we were trying to do. And I think it worked out pretty well. We didn't agree on everything, but it worked out pretty well. Any questions on PBA and lieutenant contract? Software, Bruce and I don't know if you all want to talk. We sort of keep kicking it around, and I think we all know what the issues are, and it's just a function of you all trying to...
Well, I think Ira and I talked about setting aside some time in June if we can get together with the chief. But I wanted to clarify, I think it's more than a software problem, it's a hardware problem, because they really have to be integrated well, otherwise you're just wasting time and money with upgrading one and not the other.
Right.
So the first step, I think, for us would be to do a complete assessment of the current system, its strengths and weaknesses, and maybe talk to the people who are using it, talk to the people who are maintaining it, maybe also look at the adequacy of the vendor that is supporting it and see what needs to be changed. I had asked the chief, as well as Detective Lucchese, just casually, if they had the opportunity to change their system now, would they go with the same company that they had gone with? And I believe the answer was unanimously no.
Yeah, there are some other companies out there
Yeah.
that even countywide we've been
Yeah.
exploring. And I think, it would be a bad idea to look at the other possibilities a little, if we're looking to do a complete,
If we don't do it complete, it doesn't pay doing
That
it.
doesn't make it, but I think also...
You're going to be trying to deal with patches, and
That's right.
you deal with patches, you get worse than you
It's a
have.
never-ending problem.
Yeah.
But I think also, that I think in order to, it's important to develop an assessment of the needs. You know, we're talking here, for example, about utilization versus service calls. It's important for a program to be customizable. We may have a need because of our situation, New Paltz, to require custom reports that maybe are not part of their normal package, but vendors can do that. The right vendor can customize a report. They send you a patch or a number of ways of doing it. So I think everybody needs to think about what the ideal system would provide for them, whether it's reporting, whether it's ease of use, whether it's training and support, whether it's updates and upgrades. I mean, you can make a whole list, and the more we think about it, the longer the list is going to get. But I think it's important to consider that. I can see this easily being a 6-month or longer project just to make those assessments. But I think the starting point, at least from my perspective, would be to meet with you or somebody from the department to get an idea of the capabilities of the system, strengths, weaknesses. I would like to talk to whoever's handling the IT aspect of it for the police department to get their
No, the
ideas
IT is on me.
about it and sort of kind of, you know, build a requisition from the bottom up.
You know, one of the ideas that a lot of companies are going with now is a internet access, so you don't actually have the software in our system, which has a lot of benefits to it. There's some downfalls also if we're offline. However, that seems to be a way a lot of agencies are going. There seems to be a lot of ability for customizing your programs with those companies. The cost could be a little on the great side because they're also maintaining the software. But I will be going to a conference in July where they have expos that are very large, that they have many different companies. And it may be a short time, but if we can maybe put down a wish list of what we'd like to see and what the commission would like to see so that you can get certain statistics that you're looking for.
It's in July?
July, yes, the end of July. So we would have 2 meetings prior to that.
Yeah.
And maybe we can come up with a list of presenting to different companies, can you do these type things? And then even work on the demo and things of that nature for companies that think they can do that.
I think while you're there, if you could just grab as much information as you can, websites, demos, whatever they have, something we can look at.
Sure.
I can't be at the next meeting, by the way, I'll be out of the country, so I was going to let you know separately, but I'll just let you know now because we're talking about it.
Well, I think ultimately what would be great would be for you guys to figure out what fits his needs, because that should come first, and then the spewing out of the data is
To that,
secondary.
right, the customization
Yeah.
is something, right. We have to set the base program in, and it has to be what the chief needs to operate efficiently. There's no
Right.
question about that.
Because
What
otherwise-
we're looking for are the mining-type programs, that, one that will generate reports, that nobody has to sit there and they push a button and say, okay, we want the foot patrol report, we want the usage report, we want the dog report, or whatever. That's the mining stuff that the public and the commission should work on, but the base has to be what the chief can use and what is comfortable for his people to be able to use and easy for them to understand. Where they just have to push a button and they don't have to get involved in, gee, how do we do this? Because if you recall during our audits, well, let's see, the chief was pushing the buttons one way, Sergeant Lucchese was pushing the buttons a different way, and how you push the buttons gave you, different information.
Well, it'd be great if, at the end of your process, you guys could present a proposal for us to approve, to recommend to the town board, to spend the money to update the system, because that's what we're talking about, the system update within the department.
That's right.
Yeah.
If that's what you all think is necessary, which leads to this question. Is that something that could partially be paid from seized assets?
Yes, there is, some of the funds can be used from that.
Okay.
Yeah, but just some of the
I
funds.
wouldn't use all, 'cause
Yeah,
they'll wipe it out and then-
Yeah, just some of the funds actually can be used from seized
Can I ask
assets.
you a quick question? Where is this seminar being held?
I'm sorry, Amy, I didn't hear you.
I was just
apologize.
asking the chief where the seminar is being held.
Oh,
That'll be down in Florida.
Because I was thinking, if you're at all like many administrators, you might not know some of the things that an IT person would know, and it might be very beneficial if we're actually shopping for a new program to bring somebody who is an IT person, and they could check out all the different programs, and maybe they can understand things on a different level, and that could be a big help to the department and to you.
Yeah, I think that most of these companies now, because they are online and they do the demos online, and they even would fly here from, depending on where they are, because a lot of these people are from different areas across the country, that they go to these big shows and they do things. But I know I've spoken to May Morales, who's the town's IT person, about some programs and stuff, and she gives her input based on, she understands, the town-wide system that we use in each different department. But I believe she would be the one that would tell you best that, yeah, we need to upgrade certain things. She's the one that we did a complete upgrade probably about eight years ago, maybe. So it's time, and you blink and it's time again. But,
Upgrades, to put in perspective, are the kinds of things you do several times a year.
Yeah. But I know we did a whole system change. We put new servers in and what have you.
Yeah.
But we're probably getting near that point again. So now would be the time, maybe for both the system as well, as you're saying, and the software.
And the other issue is, as these systems age, they become less mechanically reliable too. So you wind up just spending a lot of money keeping things running, and it's just, becomes counterproductive. But where in Florida is the...
Orlando.
Orlando?
Yeah. Does somebody want to go here?
I can go to Disneyland, I'll go.
There's no money unless it can be paid out of seized assets. The interview procedure we talked about last month, and I was under the impression that we wanted to continue to have the full commission involvement in that process. As a compromise, perhaps, I thought that we also discussed having a second meeting to accomplish that would be done during the day at the police department, so that it was convenient for the chief and the officers, and we wouldn't spend our commission meetings in executive session staying till 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
So at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to establish a second meeting each month, if needed, right? And
Coming to you.
yeah, and basically it would be the meeting that, if you had it could be for interviews, or it could be for discipline issues that we might need to handle, so that we wouldn't need to take up that time during our commission meeting. So it would be a separate meeting to deal with those things, and they would be in and out. And so the question, so is there a second for establishing a secondary meeting if needed per month?
Second.
There's a second, okay. Any discussion?
Yep.
Of course.
Hey, I'm taking your place. We do that anyway. I don't have a problem with it, but this is, anytime we have a situation, let's say an interview or a disciplinary thing, we just call a special meeting. This is normal procedure.
Yeah, well, there's a
I have no problem with it, with the motion.
There's
It's
a difference
just-
between calling a special meeting and setting a second meeting, and that's the difference. The difference is
I
we're
see what
setting a
you-
meeting so that it is on the calendar, like this is the second Thursday of every month. There is a,
Okay.
call it an employment meeting.
All right.
No,
There's a special meeting, there's a permanent special meeting, because you have to
Correct.
call it as a special meeting to get around the time limits and all this other good stuff.
Right,
And the
so-
notifications.
and it'll be used if we need it, and if it's not,
Oh, okay,
we
no,
don't-
I
we
just
don't
thought, because I'm saying, we do
have
this
it.
anyway. If we need a special meeting, we call a special meeting.
but it helps, it will help him with his planning, because the way that we do it now, it's like, I got to wait for a commission meeting so that we can deal with this. But now he knows that, the third Wednesday of every month, I have my time, so I can bundle all my stuff and do it that way. I don't want to speak for you, but, I mean, is that workable for you, or no? I'm not saying it's going to be the third Wednesday of every month. I mean, I was thinking a set day so that we're sure that we get all the people, because I don't think you're going to get what you want, which is 2 people coming to the thing to interview people, which I know is your preference. So perhaps this is the compromise
So
to
you
that.
want to have a predetermined date and time allocated each month if we need it?
Correct.
Right.
All right,
Correct.
then I would only state that I only could do it on a Wednesday or a Friday. So I just got to throw that into the mix. I have no flexibility.
Wednesday or
on that.
Friday?
You know, I'm available anytime, you know.
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays?
Yeah.
Wednesdays are better than Fridays.
Yeah.
Can we do like 4 o'clock, or
Yeah.
can we do it earlier on Wednesdays?
What
3?
time on Wednesday?
3?
3 or 4, yeah.
3 or 4?
It's no problem.
3 or 4 is fine with me. I hate these 9 o'clock meetings.
So do we want to pick the third week of the month?
How about the Wednesday after the meeting, so that we can determine the day of the meeting if we're going to need to meet again for...
That works. Should we start that now, so that we don't have to go into executive session today?
What do we have for
Oh,
executive
you won't be
session?
here next week, okay.
But
We have stuff for executive session? I'm just curious. I didn't see it.
When time?
executive session will be
Oh,
very
okay.
brief tonight.
Okay, no, I just, there was...
For you, yeah,
Oh, yeah. You guys want to throw out there?
for you.
Yeah, no,
So is that okay? So it'll be the Wednesday after our regularly scheduled meeting will be our established second meeting per month,
Starting
starting in June.
June.
starting in June.
And at that meeting, we'll determine if we need
At our commission meeting, we'll determine if we'll need to use
the second meeting.
that
The
meeting.
second
So
meeting.
he'll bring all his personnel stuff for that following Wednesday.
And right now, we're the second Thursday.
Right, but the second Thursday, this is going to be
So-
the
so
Wednesday
June
after
would
the
be
second Thursday.
Would be the 19th, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only way I can
What's the time?
describe it, is the Wednesday after the second
3
Thursday.
o'clock? Or
3 o'clock?
3:30?
3, whatever, you know.
Shift is at 3, right? So that's, you probably want to do 3:30?
It doesn't matter for me, my hours
Okay.
are...
Okay. No, I didn't know if you went in when they changed shifts, if you had any interaction. Okay. So 3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 o'clock's fine.
Okay.
Unless, you know.
Here, we don't know yet.
It'll be at the
It'd be
police
at the
department,
police
the
station,
chief
because
police
they're going to
station.
be special meetings, and we don't have to be out here. And it's easier that way than throwing everybody out of here.
And then that way, I can have the 3 days' notice to alert
To alert the
the
town
clerk.
clerk.
Okay?
I know we discussed possibilities of a different night for the meetings instead of the Thursdays. Would a Wednesday night, and then we keep everything on Wednesdays work for a meeting?
I doubt it, because I think the clerk handles that, so what would happen, I mean, I think
We're set for the year.
we're set for the
Number
year.
one.
So
Number
there,
two,
I
you know.
think, you got planning board, you got environmental, you got all these other committees that
That are
are
meeting, yeah.
in the mix. So moving us would move,
Well, I'm not saying we can't change it, but I don't think we should change it until the first of the year, when everybody, then what the chair has to do is run down to the clerk and say, I want the third Wednesday of every month, before everybody else
I
gets a
kind of like
chance.
the Thursdays. What's up with you and Thursday? You don't like?
Thursdays,
football.
I just had- Well, football's going to be something, and there is a game coming up. The Jets are playing in, but as long as we get out of here like after an hour.
Well, if we're handling discipline issues in a separate meeting, we won't be here very long.
But I belong to that one club that I usually go to on the same night, and they just, I don't go because of this, but every once in a while. But it's good practice for the second in command to come to some meetings once in a while.
There you go.
So it can work anyway.
There you
We'll make it
go.
work.
There you go. All right. All in favor of the meeting Wednesday?
Special meetings
Special meeting
scheduled for the
scheduled for
Wednesday
after our
Regular meeting,
regular meeting
at 3 o'clock.
at 3 o'clock at the police department. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Done. Got that, Becky?
I got it.
That was easy.
Okay.
Randall thought I was going to
Wednesday.
give him a hard time.
discipline notification procedure. You all have seen the emails that have been going back and forth with respect to that. We sort of talked about that today as well. I had recommended that we figure out a form whereby when discipline issues are brought for commission action, that it be a form of some sort with the chief's narrative, his recommendation, and signature, and a place for us to indicate what our action and/or instruction was, and then we keep a copy for our records. There may be issues with respect to us keeping a separate document in a file, so we have to get the lawyers involved. Hopefully, we can work it out amongst ourselves, because I personally think it can be something. I'm just looking for a way for us to have a record of commission action. And I believe that we can figure out how to do that without making it a nightmare for everybody and involving 3 lawyers and everybody else. I mean, I just want to make sure that, and the example that I'm not going to call out any names, but there were instances that we talked about today where we were asked to take action on things, but there was no paper trail to protect us. The chief had his written document in the person's folder. The person had the information in their file. The union had the information that they needed. And of course, the town has what it needs. But there's nothing here that says, this is what was brought before us, and this is what we were told was the problem, and this was the recommendation that was provided to us, and we were asked to either affirm or recommend something else. There's no paper trail to protect us should somebody come back and say, why did you do that? Or how did this happen?
You know, one thing also, as you know, that you can look at paperwork in the course of your duties as commissioners. The paper trail would be in the IA folder. So although, yes, it's in my office, in my control, for the policy, that's how everything is. The disciplinary documents that would go into a personnel file, again, is per contract, and there's time limits for the purging and things of that nature. But although you may not have, again, I think there's certain things that should be done differently based on what we've seen. So when a disciplinary issue comes to you because it's above what I can handle, or the officer doesn't want what I'm offering for when things can be handled by myself, the next step is the commission. I think where I've been lacking in turning the documents over should be that document should be in written form rather than me handing the report to you and telling you what I'd like to see. My report should include what I'd like to see or what my recommendation was, because I think that's one of the things that's lacking. Once it's all done, and even your document as a commissioner, the chair would, render your decision, that would be attached to this folder also. So there is a tracking, and maybe on your end, which wouldn't even be an issue for the PBA, and I'm just thinking of this now as the way you said something just made me think of it this way, that you keep a track of IA numbers and what the IA was in reference to, and then you don't even include the person's name. So if you get a call that said, if we get something that is, we'll just use officer not wearing their hat, you can go to your IA folder and say, okay, IA 20 had to do with a person not wearing a hat. Let's review that folder or IA case, and you would get the document that, again, through the course of your duties as a commissioner, you review that case folder.
Yeah, I think that could work, but and maybe it's just me, maybe I'm thick, but I have a major problem with us being asked to make decisions about discipline and us not having our own set of records for our protection. And that's it. I mean, there's nothing in the folder that's and I don't think we should have to go to you to get documentation for actions that we take as a body. So, I mean, there needs to be a mechanism set up whereby we're protected, whereby we can come in if somebody wants to take a look at something that we've done when we're all not here, and a whole new commission comes in, there should be a system in place that says these were actions that were taken, and there's some similarity here that you can look at and see what somebody, and it doesn't mean that you use that to make your decision, but it is something, it is a reference point. And maybe I'm crazy, but it just makes logical sense to me. Does anybody else?
I guess what I'm a little bit confused about it, because you used the word protection a couple of times. Protection in what regard? Well, I guess that's the first thing. Well, let's address that first. Because I was going to ask you for a hypothetical situation.
Well, I can't.
For example,
Well,
where we
hypothetically,
would need protection. I don't know enough about this, so I may be missing the picture entirely.
when I say protection, I mean documentation. Documentation for what we were asked to do by the chief that outlines what the problem was. Because the way that it works now is the chief can come in and say, we've got a disciplinary problem we have to deal with. And he explains what the problem and situation is. And then he tells us or recommends to us what his thing is. Now, you could hear something totally different than what I hear when he verbally communicates what the problem is.
Right.
And we can make a decision, and we're all thinking something, hearing something differently, and then we ask about it and say, oh, no, I didn't, I might not, that's not what I meant, or I'm sorry, that you heard me incorrectly, and sometimes it's too late.
I understand. So, Chief, what you were addressing before was that it would be written and not verbal?
Correct.
Okay, so...
That's a big part. That's a big part of it.
Okay.
And then the other part of it is, if we take an action as a body, we should be able to have and maintain a record of any action that we take, particularly when we're disciplining somebody.
Right.
Or when if we're being asked to mete out punishment of some sort, we should be able to maintain a record of what it was that we were asked to do, and whether or not we upheld his recommendation or said, no, instead of 2 days, we want 5 days, and our reason for those 5 days is bloom. And it goes in a folder that just says disciplinary action. It's not associated with an officer. I mean, and in fact, using your example, when you do that narrative, you can reference the officer by the IA file in the document that we will keep in that folder, and it's not associated with a name. You still maintain that file, but we have a piece of paper with your signature, your narrative, our sign-off, and what we asked and instructed to do. So when you go back to the officer, we all know exactly what was agreed to do, and if we ask you about it and it's not what we asked, then we can say, well, that's what it, you know what I mean? So maybe your idea of using the number, the IA number, accomplishes the same thing twice. It keeps the file with you, but it gives us our documentation without a person's name, just a number. And the only way we can come up with the name is if we go to the folder that's in your office. I think that works.
Well, it sounds like, I mean, is there an what would be the objection to that?
My only objection is that whether it is doable and allowable by law and by contract.
Okay.
So I know we talked about it, and this is the problem we run into is the town attorney says one thing, the labor attorney says another,
Right.
and then the union attorney might even say another thing. I don't know.
But this is a new version.
Well,
Am
by
I right?
using this number, yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
if we've, well, you brought
Yeah.
up some.
Yeah, I mean, I
I
don't,
think if the attorneys say,
Yeah.
yeah, by law, that's legal, you can do it, I don't want to object to it. It's just that if it's violating the contract,
Right.
that's why I'm saying we just need to make sure that it's not an issue there.
Mm-hmm.
My only other object to it being here would be things have been known to disappear from this room
Right.
during business hours.
Yeah.
And if there's only a chain locking it with these cheap little
Mm-hmm.
locks on it, you also don't want your documents of something like this getting stolen either.
well, let me, well, and the other
That's
thing,
just another
yeah,
question.
the other thing to that too is that whenever we talk about a disciplinary problem, nobody knows we're talking about a disciplinary problem until we come out and we get, I mean, so we go into executive session for personnel, discipline, da-da-da. We go in a room, we talk about an officer and the issue, and then we report out, we took a disciplinary action without naming an officer.
Right.
And it's done. It's like 3 words or however it comes out when we put it in there. So it's not like, so nobody is going to know when we're dealing with a disciplinary problem that is going to generate a piece of paper for us to maintain. I just have an issue with the labor attorney and the union attorney telling the commission that it can't keep records of actions that it's being asked to take. That's, I think, the biggest rub for me.
Yeah, and I think the thing, wherever the records are kept, the concern is that we have a written history of what took place.
Sure.
And down the road, if Officer A commits the same offense that Officer B does, and there's different discipline, we can look at why there's different
Yes.
discipline. It can be backed up.
Right.
It's not seen as favoritism or a bias or whatever.
But if it can't be referenced to the individual by name, or even if date were a problem, there'd be a way to somehow, deal with that, then it's really just the interpretation of the attorneys. This is a different scenario, I believe, than we had outlined last time. 'Cause
Yeah, now
because
that he brought up the number, using
That's right. So-
the number and keeping it in the
Yeah, you can
the
come up with a
file.
system, again.
Because my
for-
issue is not,
Yeah.
is, I just want to figure out a way to get it done so that everybody's happy, so that it's quick and it's easy. And I'm willing to do the number, but again, if we, let's say, for example, we have a discipline issue, and we decide we want to discuss it without your being in the room. So we excuse you for the day or the evening or whatever. And, it's this time of night, and we want to reference a similar case. We should be able to come here, open that drawer, pull it out. Using you keeping it, it means, oh, God, we forgot to ask him to bring, and then we can't do what we need to do, and our work shouldn't be dependent on your availability to us and files and folders and records for this particular body. So that's my only thing.
Mr. Chairman, may I raise a technical point? I didn't know that it would come up, but I did serve for 7 years as the Board of Assessment Review and another 5. Planning Board, I was chair of the Planning Board before. I had personnel issues as a department head. There is a...
Contract issues? Were you, their union?
I did
Okay.
have, yes, I
Okay.
had one with an employee that I felt was had fashion between the planning board's responsibilities to the employee. There is a personnel officer, there was, at the time, in the town. And that, what comforted me was there were processes and procedures set up with contract employees for the confidentiality of those records. Now, that was a different, and what makes me a little uncomfortable is every time you go like this, because I lived in this building for 5 years. And when you point there, or back there, but for whatever reason, the personnel records, which include disciplinary and firing and so forth, were controlled by the other unions. So I don't know where they reside, but they're not there. I'll tell you that. Where they are in the supervisor's office or wherever, but there's always the issue of changing administrations, changing employees. But if the issue is the sensitivity of personnel files, there are processes in the town now. I don't know what they are, I don't know what would be adequate for the police.
Yeah, he keeps his own personnel files in the
building is
department.
town's. The building is the town's, the building where the police officer is. I can't imagine there is a physical space that would be the commission's space, where you, if the space became an issue, which it did not in my case, but I was very concerned for the privacy, even though the individual and I were at loggerheads, it was here, it was protected, there was if it's physical space, it's a big building, it's not the police department building, it's the town's building. I can't imagine there's not a cupboard somewhere for a file cabinet to keep these sensitive materials that the commission always has access to. But I wish I...
No, and
It's a good point.
that makes,
It's a real good
that makes sense. I mean, like I said, we have a file cabinet here with a key,
Oh, yeah, don't show me that key.
But-
It doesn't mean anything.
Here's the question that I keep coming back to. It is the access to those files and records. I mean, I'm a night owl. Ira's a night owl. I mean, what I'm hearing is that my ability to do my job when I feel like doing it as chair of the commission is dependent on access to records for this body within his control and domain, and then I have to go there when
Unless he says.
Unless he's-
Randall can come in at any time of the day.
right.
It's the town's building. Let's keep, my thought is, I do want to make one other technical comment, but this is soluble. If the attorneys say it's there, it is soluble. And as a friend of this town and a friend of the people, I understand the territory, I got it, it's soluble, but it's not there. Because the night owl that comes here might be the chap who's bothering this fellow who's back here. This town is very inadequately, we're not even meeting the state standards back there for the record keeping, and I know that. So the one building we have that's state approved is for at least state standards, I know it's police department, but I got that too, that we need freedom. I had similar issues, but that's a technical soluble problem.
Well, I think we've sort of reached an accommodation based on what you said. That numbering thing is sufficient. So, I mean, at this point, when you fill it out and you've already got the IA number to it, when we go into executive session, we'll know who the particular officer is. So it doesn't have to be on that form.
Do you want to check though with the labor attorney and town attorney? And
Yeah, I mean, we can.
I mean, that's my only thing, because if we start doing something that is a violation.
Well, we don't have any discipline problems to deal with, so, I mean, we have time, but I just want to, you're looking, do you have a thought? Are you thinking something?
I have many thoughts.
Okay.
On one hand, I think it's a great idea. We have a large police department, and now we're going to be going over there once a month on Wednesday. So we could, when we're there, have access to any of the files. But then at the same hand, if you want to do some homework, then you should be able to do that without having to call the chief or go over to the police department, and be able to do it at your leisure. And I think that the numbers make it an anonymous person. So I don't see why it would even matter if someone stole it, because they have no idea who it is.
Would there be a problem if Randall wanted to look at the files at the PD at 1 in the morning?
The only thing that he would have to do, if he had it in the conference room, I'm sure they would, let him in. We just have to make arrangements to allow him in. And I know it sounds silly, but, just the protocol of the
Right.
building.
It's a secure environment.
Yeah.
But as you said, I mean, my bigger concern isn't so much here because, files haven't been broken into or anything
Right.
there. My biggest concern is just that, the labor attorney and the union say,
Right.
you know what, that's fine, keeping records, so it doesn't violate any of the contractual language.
Sure. So if there were a protocol that would allow a commissioner to come in at an off hour, something that was convenient enough without being disruptive or creating a security issue, that might be one way. I mean, I don't know if is it equally
Are there rules concerning
equal to drive to down South Putt as it is to come here?
No, yeah, we have to notify, technically, we have to notify
So coming into a secure.
him that we want access to files.
Yeah.
And again, we go back to that being a rub for me. I mean, they're
Sure.
our work product. It's stuff we do, and to get permission to go get them and have access to them.
I mean, it's hypothetical right now.
Yes.
Also, it's something that we could try to implement, and if the situation came up where it just didn't work out, we can always revisit it. Am I
Yeah,
right
well, the
or
claim, I
not?
think part of the claim is that it's being characterized as we're keeping another personnel file
Right.
for an individual, and I'm thinking discipline, a file folder that's labeled discipline issues, with all of them dropped in there, so it would be.
But if we run this scenario by the attorneys, with either the records being kept here or there, if they were comfortable with that, it sounds like you would be comfortable
I'm
with it.
fine with it, as long
And
as the
then-
labor attorney says.
And then it would just be a question of whether it's a workable solution, and the one way to find out is to give it a try.
All I want to say is, in terms of the labor attorney and all the emails went back and forth, he basically said that if the town attorney says that we're entitled to it, because he referred to Article 50 or whatever it was in the thing, that it was okay, but it had to comply with Article 50. We have a written, that's a section in the law. We have a written opinion from the town attorney that we qualify under that section as, I forget what we're called, but employees or something along that line. So the-
Something different, though.
Yeah, that's something different. This is more of keeping a separate document under discipline for an officer, and what he said in his email to me was it might be interpreted as keeping a separate personnel folder. Well, it might not be interpreted, so it's like,
I have a question. Sorry.
no, I'm just, it's just a frustrating
We could
kind of
ask the
thing.
attorney, and we could certainly tech it out with the tech people. But if we're just using numbers instead of officers' names, and everything's anonymous, I wonder if we could develop some kind of a Google circle or something.
No,
where we
can't go
can-
online. Not
If
for
it has-
personnel.
If it has numbers?
No, you can't, that I could definitely tell you.
Well, it wouldn't be online, because the only people that would be able to open the circle would be the people that you allow into it.
Yeah, but somebody's got to put it up there. It's
somebody can hack into
It's
it.
too public.
It's too public.
That's the
And
problem.
for the officers deserve their privacy and to be protected, even though they've done something wrong. It's just,
I don't know if
I
you're
think
aware,
the
but
answer lies in the compromise right there of maybe
yeah, I think we just
clearing
need to
it,
figure out
trying to work it out
how
down
to
there. The
work
other
it.
question would be, though, our files, if they resided at the PD, would be only accessible by a commissioner. They would be secured in a cabinet. They wouldn't be...
Yeah, if there's-
They would have to be secured to us, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So that nobody else could go into that record.
Well,
I don't know if I trust our member, no, I'm just-
yeah.
How do you-
No, but right.
You don't know if you trust who?
How do you
I don't
know?
know if I trust our members.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's quite possible that, I was talking to the clerk. She says, I have a safe here and secure document, so I could store stuff there. So, that might be a solution in the clerk's office.
Hopefully, it's not going to be a
in the
large
safe.
volume of information. Hopefully, it stays empty.
No, I'm looking at one sheet of paper.
Right.
I really am. I'm not looking for a dossier on it's one piece of paper.
Scan it.
Yeah. I
Keep
just-
it on your hard drive, I
Yeah,
mean, for
it's
that matter.
just- Well, that could be considered
You know,
Yeah.
for another personnel file.
Yeah.
So it's
I think it
just,
would be.
I mean, it's all
if it's
the,
anonymous, it would still be a personnel file? Yeah.
Could be.
yeah, so, okay. So we'll figure out how to, let's work together, and maybe we'll three and Dan, and we sit there, or I don't know how you want to, but I want to make sure that everybody's buy into it. Yeah, I want everybody to buy into it, and so if,
I mean, the concept is great, it's understood even by Dan when we talked about this.
yeah,
The PDA president. It's just that, like I said, we want to make sure that, nobody's violated, and everything, and it makes
Yeah, it
sense.
has to be able to stand up if it's challenged,
Yeah.
absolutely.
and it's protection, so that, we can say, this is what we were asked to do. We didn't just think this up, Okay. I don't know if we want to even, the next, it's like we're picking on you today.
go ahead.
Chief's monthly report,
What do you want to talk about?
reducing paper.
Yeah.
That's not, I mean, I like that.
No, that's going
Well,
to take the whole
here's,
separate
I'm
meeting.
gonna, I am totally all for it. And I'm not gonna speak for Ira, but I'm gonna speak for Ira because I know paper is sort of his livelihood. And I know that in working with him over the past 2 years, in working with him over the past couple of years, he thrives on this report, and the beauty of it is that there isn't one of these reports, no matter how far back, I can say, I need to find out about such and such, and he says, hold on. And within 2 hours, he's culled through the papers and is able to give me the information that I need in order to make decisions or talk to people about stuff. So I know that the paper is important to him, and reducing it, and he's, I joke that he uses a rotary cell phone. So to force him to adapt to electronic paper to do what he does is sort of a hardship, and I'm trying to figure out if we can come up with something that is workable for him, but also incorporates the rest of our sensibilities to reducing paper and his
Are we allowed to
production
put
of
this on the
paper.
computer?
I'm sorry, what did you say, Amy? I didn't hear you.
No,
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
that's part of the
I
problem.
was just asking if we're allowed to put any of this on the computer,
On what computer?
on any computer, so that they can email us a PDF with the gasoline bills instead of giving us 8 pages of gas bills.
The problem with doing this stuff and not having it on paper, and like Randall says, I'm an old, I won't use the vernacular, is that,
Old school.
yeah, no, not old school, but the point is, you have a PDF, you get a PDA file, so I gotta have 2 computers. Well, one I gotta look over here, and then I gotta look over here. Try doing an overtime report without a piece of paper. You've never seen the overtime reports, because I stopped doing them when we didn't have a new contract, because it's a waste of time. But the overtime reports would tell us exactly who did what and how much it cost us. So we know, for example, that we were entitled to $40,000 or $50,000 in refunds from the STEP or whatever. You can't work, or you can't do statistical work unless you have a program that will incorporate the program without a piece of paper. Are there some reports here that, I don't, like I said, the detective's report, the total report doesn't mean anything. There are a number of reports, streetlight reports. I personally don't care. That's strictly up to them. They want to, But in terms of if you want to see how, what the ratios of, for example, when we were having a fight with the dog, I went back to every report I had with the dog, did a complete report, was able to cull from the paper that the dog report that we did most of our out of state and whatever, and we came up with a way to save the dog. If you want to do reports, this is what you need if you don't have an integrated program. To try to work with it without it's just not going to get done.
But it's not one or the other. I mean, you could have it digital and printed.
Oh, I don't care about...
Or you could, I mean, because somebody physically is copying all this stuff or standing by a printer and feeding
Teresa.
paper into it and changing cartridges. I mean, it's not a big deal if Keurig and Cohen preferred burned to a CD and Ira prefers it copied. I mean, I think trying to move in that direction
Well, I think one of
helps in a
the,
lot of different ways.
one of the problems, just one of the problems is that I think there's a concern about sensitivity of some of the stuff that's in this document, because we don't even email it
Right.
Right.
to us or the supervisor. And so it's, it's one of those things you don't want just like
Well, I'm not saying email it,
dispersed
but if I
via
pick
email.
up a CD and it's burned to that CD, why is that less secure than if I pick up an envelope full of papers? I think it's even more secure because I can dispose of it much quicker, much more efficiently than shredding 75 pages a month or whatever it is.
That's-
I mean, I understand absolutely why you don't want it to go into a public sort of, kind of thing like over an unsecure internet connection or, that kind of a thing over a public network. But I'm just simply saying that it takes a lot of time and money and manpower and resources, not even talking about the environmental
Right.
impact of just printing up. You probably have at least between us on a monthly basis, there's got to be 200 pages here, I'm guessing.
Trees.
Well, I mean, again, I'm not like hugging the tree, I'm
No,
just
no,
simply saying,
it's a lot.
I look at this at the end of the month, I got to sit by the shredder for the next 20 minutes and shred 3 pages at a
Well,
time.
I guess that's the difference between me and the other commissioners, is I don't shred it. I think this stuff is
What
too
I was
important
going
to just
to say-
destroy.
I have all of last year's.
Yeah,
Gentlemen, ladies, 1%
But it's
at a time,
available.
please.
It's available.
it's not available, not if you destroy it.
But the source that it came from is available.
I don't know.
The chief had a question, and you go, and then the chief's question about bringing the disc to the meeting, or how are you, so.
Disc or paper, I think we also wanted to talk about what do we really want the chief to
Right.
report to us?
Right.
What do we see as important for the public, for the town, for the safety? I mean, what do we really want to look at?
It's what the commission wants to look at, or what it wants.
Us too.
No.
Well, this can also tie in, though,
Right.
I mean, we can look at it also within the context of any change that may happen to the ability of a different program to generate. There may be reports that are even better than these that we don't get now because there's no way to secure it, so. But I agree, part of that assessment, looking at what might have to be done in terms of software, hardware, is what does the commission really want to see
So,
on a monthly
let me
basis?
see if I can't streamline this then. Should we table this pending your report in 6 months based on the type of software that you guys figure out what you want, so that, because there's the hardware, software meld, and then there's the secondary portion of the data that Ira would want to be able to pull out of it. So there's no point in us deciding what we want in this report if we're trying to figure out new software that's going to bring us into the 21st century and let Ira pull what he needs, so he might be able to get what he needs in one page
Well,
versus
also, the
600 pages.
thing is, we're talking copies. We're not talking about printers and printer ink and all this other stuff. They make the one copy of the report, and they run it through a printer. It takes 10, 15 minutes tops when you're talking about these printers that they have here. I mean, it's not a lot of work. The work is in creation of the report. What I don't like, and this has to do with the computer problems, is the reports that they got to do by hand. That I can understand the problem. And there's no reason, but I'll give you an example. When I called about the D-line, because I needed some information on the D-line, if we didn't have, I spoke to the person's, schedule, and they couldn't tell me who was on the D-line, who went on the D-line. I went into that file, and I got all the old hard copies, and I was able to do the research on the D-line. Can't speak for any of the other commissioners, but I don't ever want to say to the town board or to somebody, I'm sorry, we don't have that information. It makes us look silly. Because we're supposed to be, there are some of the reports that don't work. I mean, it's silly to run those.
Right.
That's why we went from the fuel log report, which didn't work, to the individuals. Do we need it on 17 pieces of paper? No. We can, we don't need to know every day, but we need to know how much car A used so that we can sit there and say, hey, wait a minute, this car is costing us too much money. But can we streamline the reports? Yes, that's the computer problem. And that's what has to be done.
There's another possibility too, depending on, again, if we ever get to the point where you have a different program and application, is that there is a way to give secure remote access to limited aspects of that program.
Yeah, that ain't gonna happen.
You say it ain't gonna happen, which depends what and why
Yeah.
it ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
Maybe it can happen, but maybe there's a way to look at it.
Well,
It can happen,
that's...
Because
that-
you assign different levels to a well-designed program, you assign different levels of security to different people so that they can only get certain information.
That's actually a very good idea.
Can't
because
change things,
Because what would
delete,
happen...
change, whatever.
Yeah, what could happen is the report, we could have access to it, and if he wanted to print it out, he could print it out.
Sure, you pay for it, Margolis.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Or come here and print it out. I mean,
No, you don't want to print it out here.
then go to the police department and print it. I mean, you can.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I was just
Yeah.
breaking his
But the
job.
same thing is true of the report right now. I mean, again, it's in a digital format. That's how it's getting, nobody's sitting at a IBM Selectric and doing this.
Correct,
You're sitting at
correct.
a word processor, so these are all
Right.
document files of some sort.
Right.
So it can be burned to a disk very quickly, and if you want to print it out, you print it out.
Yeah. Well, why don't we table this?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
I think parts of this are obviously highly sensitive and secret information, but other parts of it, I might be wrong, but I think that this Sunoco, all this gas, I mean, look how many pages, what are there, 12, 15 pages of gas bills. I personally do take a look at this because I find it interesting, but it's a lot of gas bills, so you could probably email that to us.
I'll see how they...
Same thing with the streetlight report. I can't imagine that anybody would be upset.
Is anybody interested in here?
No, the commission is not interested in the email, in the streetlight report. The reason the streetlight report comes to the commission is because it goes to the town and village. And nothing that goes out from the police department should go out without the commission at least knowing what's been sent. That's the only reason it's part of it, because the way the thing works, unless you report to Orange and Rockland, no, fine, you're going to pay for the streetlight whether it's on or off. And it doesn't cost anything to get it done because they mark this stuff as they go along. That's the only reason to, do I look at the streetlight report? Absolutely not, I care less. But it's just the matter of nothing should ever go out from the police department that the commission is not aware of, so that somebody can go back and say, hey, did you know that the light on Calamari Street was out for the last 3 months? Why didn't you do something? That's all. There's a lot of those reports. A lot of the reports just don't work.
We may want every single thing that we get. I'm just saying, I think we should look at what we have.
Yes, I agree.
Decide, do we want it all? And if that's the case, yes, and then how do we get it?
See, the problem with that is you never know what you want. Like when I had to do, like I said, when I did the dog
Very true.
reports, or when I did the D lines, I went to that file cabinet, and goes back further than my files. It goes back for, I don't know how many commission files, and you can see all the different type of reports. And you want to do the research on it. It only comes back is because you get the town board, or you get not the village, but the town board or town representative or whoever, they want they ask questions, and you have to be able to get that information. And like I said, I'm saying, you're right, I'm from the old school, but if I'm sitting on my computer with my programs that do all of this work, I don't want to sit there with 2 pieces of paper looking over here and looking over there. I need one. It's the way I have to work.
Well-
It's the way I work.
So I'm going to suggest that we table this pending you guys report back to the commission on the software potential upgrade
Yeah, no,
recommendation.
if
And
we get a
then-
good upgrade on software, we can consolidate these reports, is the way to do it.
That's
If we
what we're doing.
consolidate these reports, then they can print it out on their printer, or get one of those copier printers, I think, and, you just throw it out there,
Right.
and, print, for those that want it, print 1 copy, or print 2 copies, or,
Okay, the mobile field unit, We had agreed to get, pass it along to SUNY. Over the course of last meeting, it was decided that the town highway department could make use of that vehicle. So the town is going to, it's just going to be transferred to Chris Marks and crew because they'll repurpose it. It stays within the family. It saves the taxpayer money because he doesn't have to buy a truck that he can now use to haul specialized equipment around, and everybody's happy, right?
Terrific.
Okay. Command vehicle weekend placement.
That's got to be Amy.
How'd you know? Well, I mean, it seems like we have a little less foot patrol than we'd like to have. It also seems like we have a very busy and very needy downtown village, especially on the weekends, especially at night, especially with a lot of noise, drunk people, people being violent, problems downtown. And some people think, since you have a beautiful command vehicle in your parking lot, which seems to come out on special occasions, and obviously if you needed it, if there was some kind of a very large problem or disaster, you could set it up there. But since, for the most part, it seems like it is in the parking lot, just sitting there, many people think that if it were in a downtown location, especially perhaps Thursday night through Sunday afternoon, it might dissuade certain people from acting badly in the downtown area and give a better look of a police presence without actually having to have somebody standing on a corner 24 hours a day. If you have your vehicle there, it will appear, especially to people who aren't listening to this meeting right now, that we're there and that the police are there and that they're keeping an eye downtown. And I think psychologically it may really help out problems that we have downtown.
Well, one of the issues is that if we put it downtown, we'd have to man it. To put it there as a deterrent, it's going to get vandalized. People are going to spray paint things behind it and everything else. That is an issue that takes place when police agencies used to leave police cars. It was great at the beginning because, oh, there's an officer there. But once they realized that it was just, a real dummy sitting in the car.
Well, you could use cameras, and we could put a camera on it.
Well, I mean, now you're adding more to it. In our parking lot, when it's not in use, there's a camera on it, so if somebody comes through there, and it's a very secure place where we are now. It's nice because it's not like the old PD where people were cutting through, walking through, and what have you. But to put it down there, unmanned, it's just, the first night or whatever, it'd work out. The first time somebody knocks on the door and nobody answers, because they would go to it thinking it's a command vehicle and somebody's there, and once they realize nobody's there, it'll become a target.
Well, and then there'll be a complaint.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to stationing an officer in there or a dispatcher in there, even because it's fully equipped with radio and operational. But again, that's another cost. It's having somebody else. And again, we talk about the village getting all the attention. Now we're giving more attention to the village and costing more money, for an officer to be in there. When we do special details, street sweeps and things of that nature, we'll park it down there, we'll put somebody in it, because we'll process people right out of it. And it is convenient. It's like an office on wheels. But to just park it somewhere, it would be a bad idea overall.
I'm kind of looking at it the other way. Sorry. But I'm thinking that if it's there, maybe there'll be less calls, and maybe you guys won't have to go down there as much. I mean, if people are going to vandalize a police vehicle, then we really have a very big problem downtown. And if that's what you guys are worried about, I'm worried, because my house is 1 block away from there.
I think, we can talk about this for a while, but I think a police vehicle is more of a icon for something to be vandalized than a random home. I'm not saying if somebody has an issue with you or something like that, but just as a random thing, if we were to park it somewhere, you know what, you're right, and it's a town vehicle, and if the commission agrees that that's what you want to see, I'll park it down there.
What is the cost?
I just don't know if the
Could we try? Could we test?
Can you
commission tell me.
do the,
I don't think it's a good idea, so if it does get vandalized, just so you know, I said it on camera. Go ahead.
what's the cost for mobilizing that, I mean, there's the power, there's the,
At a scene, it's generated, we have a generator on it, so you don't necessarily, it's good if we're gonna be somewhere for a long time, we usually find a source so we can plug it in. When we do an event or something, usually there's a building that's sponsoring it where we plug it in. But it does have a generator on board that it would run off of, so that would have to stay running, to keep everything powered up.
I mean, so you don't have a dollar figure offhand, cost of operation, but
It uses regular gas, the generator, right out of the gas tank. It doesn't have a separate holding tank.
so that would be the only cost, and then
And then a person
To
in.
man it, yeah.
to man it.
Yeah, yep.
they put a dispatcher in there.
Yep, dispatchers are about $16 an hour, I believe, in that ballpark.
And should somebody knock on it for help,
Well,
they're not going to be able to help them
No.
because it's a
They-
dispatcher,
What
right?
they are, they're like.
Or will
come
they
to the
be
police station.
dispatching? Will they, I mean, is there dispatch capability in
Yes.
that?
So what they would do is, just as if somebody walks into the police station, somebody can walk to that, and a dispatcher would call an officer to come.
Is there a secure way to talk to somebody from within the vehicle? You come into the
Yeah.
PD, you've got glass and
No.
cameras, and
So that person wouldn't be secure.
That person wouldn't
Wouldn't
be
be
safe.
secure.
They can lock the door and, crack a window, but it's, yeah.
It's almost like you'd need a police officer in.
Yeah,
there.
I would recommend, especially on a busy night like that, we have
Yeah.
intoxicated people and stuff, to man it with an officer. So that's about $22.50 an hour in that ballpark.
so you could save the money on the van, just put another officer on.
Put an officer in there, yeah. Whether
Yeah.
the officer's on foot patrol, we
Without the
park
van.
that down.
nobody will spray paint them, hopefully.
That would be
Depends.
interesting.
Halloween.
I just, when there's an event, it makes it worthwhile because, it's a place that people can go to. There's officers that come and go, but to put it out there at night, I just don't really see how it would be beneficial. And to leave it there just as a decoy or for it to be that, hey, maybe there's an officer in there. Once it's realized that an officer's not in there, then it's just, becomes useless, really.
Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I personally would love to test it out. I think it would be a terrific idea.
Would you like to make a motion? And then we'll open it for discussion and a vote? Or
Okay.
what would you like to do?
I would like to make a motion that we pick maybe a busy Saturday night, and we try it out, see what happens.
Is there a second?
Try it out in what sense? Just park it there or put officers in?
Park it there, and perhaps whatever officers are walking the beat, are on duty, could kind of use it as a home base when they're in the village and walking around.
How would you measure its effectiveness? Oh, sorry.
Is there a second? Motion dies for lack of a second. Safe Act provisions. Da-da-da-da.
I sent a link, I don't know if anyone had a chance to look at it or read it. This came up about whenever the SAFE Act was implemented, whatever date that was. I had asked Randall via email whether it's something that he thought we should put on the agenda for discussion. My thought being that my understanding of the SAFE Act at that time, I know it's had some changes, was that one of the provisions is that any gun, rifle, or magazine that would be deemed illegal, I think a year out, would have to be turned in or sold out of states. And my question simply was, has there been any discussion as to whether this would impact law enforcement at the local level? Would people be asked to come to a police station with whatever, anything that would be considered illegal at that point, and how would it be handled, or would it even, has there been, again, any discussion as to whether it would be handled at a local level? Because just reading some of the newspaper articles, however inaccurate they may be, the impression I got was that people have to go to the police department and turn these things in or register them if they required registration. So that was the purpose of my inquiry when I spoke with Randall about it, and he felt it's something that we should have on the agenda tonight, just to see if you have any input, I guess.
I don't think it's really going to impact us that much. You can register some of these, I believe, right online, and really, that site that you sent, and it's online under the New York Safe Act, that anybody can go and check and see if what you own or possess is in fact one of the, constitutes an assault rifle or something that would be illegal.
Right.
So I don't really think we're going to see a lot in regards to that. I think some people I know that have them are trying to sell them before it comes to a point where they can't possess them, and there are a lot of people that are registering them online, which doesn't affect us. So I think if we get a small amount of people that are going to turn them in for either destruction and or to hold until they can sell it somewhere out of state, which we can't do, because once we're in possession of a weapon, they can't even be turned over to someone unless there's a file check done, which we do not do. That has to be done through a gun store or whatever for the transfer of the ownership.
Has there been any discussion from the enforcement end? So now certain weapons are supposed to be disposed of, turned in, sold. If you buy even a long gun in New York, there's still a paper trail. If you buy from a dealer.
Correct.
So conceivably, the ownership of those guns would be known, and possibly even the location of those guns would be known. Has there been any discussion within law enforcement as to whether enforcement would have to take place or might take place at a local level?
Yeah, we haven't had any discussion on that, not even from the county chief's level. But the point that will be beneficial, I think, for law enforcement is that if we do gain that information to find out who in your community, have long guns, we always assume and presume that they all do, safety first, but that might be something that may be beneficial, but I don't think it's going to really be a big impact. Where it's going to impact us is when we encounter a weapon that may be illegal and or a magazine that has more than the 7 rounds that they're allowed, where then there'll be a criminal charge. So I'm interested to see how that pans out, but I don't...
From the standpoint of confiscation, there being actually an implementation of confiscation based on records, and now that this law has been enacted, I think theoretically it criminalizes a lot of people.
Yes.
Who may not turn in their guns or take the proper steps that are required. So that's the other part of my question, I guess.
Well, I think that with this law, you have a lot of people that are not criminals, that I don't think even their intent may be to, become criminals, by intentionally violating, not reporting or getting rid of. I think what we're going to see is, and then generations, may be more than less than others. But you may have some that didn't realize that, oh gosh, I didn't realize I had to report this, or I really didn't follow up on what that law really was. And, because I bought it legally, I have it, I use it once a year to hunt, I didn't realize that it met the requirement. I think we're going to run into some of that. If someone bought it illegally or they have it for illegal means, I think they're the people that are going to continue to try to get away with, not having it.
But just for my clarification, as far as your understanding at this point, there's nothing coming down from higher up in terms of implementation, that local agencies will be asked to now implement this new law by actually looking for people based on databases that exist who might have these guns that don't have registrations on file.
No, I don't think it's going to come down like that, because there's a lot of people that owns weapons that they've had for a long time that there's no record that we can search.
Right.
You know, what we're going to find is if we go to a house on a domestic, we now will ask the question, are there any weapons in the house? If the answer is yes, sometimes we seize those weapons or hold them, you know, just for safekeeping, depending on the circumstances. I think what we're going to find is during those encounters, we may find that, hey, this gun has not been registered yet. And then we're going to be having to work with the district attorney's office to find out if they're going to want these people charged, or they're going to have opportunity to register it. Each situation may be handled,
Right.
you know, a little differently depending on the circumstances.
It's conceivable that somewhere down the road, depending on how all of that develops, there might be additional resources needed by the police department, I suppose, in order to help
Yeah,
implement that
yeah.
law.
Yeah, anytime something like this happens where the unknown is really, how is it going to affect us, you know, the possibility is always there. One of the issues that we would have is obviously our evidence room is not that large. So we try to purge our weapons, you know, when we
Right.
can. So if we
And
do
of
get
course,
it.
the record system is not too adequate through no fault of
Yeah,
anybody's.
so
that's
it could be,
another road.
you know, quite a bit of work on the detectives for logging them as well.
Right. Okay.
Anything else? Any questions? Any announcements? None?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, a few weeks ago, we got together for a cup of coffee, and you did invite me to come. That's not why I came tonight, because I felt welcome. I did feel it, but it's not that you summoned me. But you did mention that there was an opportunity to make a technical comment, not a comment, public comment I made before, which is my own. I'd like to make that comment to the board with regard to the effort you're making to gather costs, and give the board just one or two facts about how important the data you have is.
Okay,
Can I
sure,
do that?
sure. If you would like, yes.
And it's triggered really by,
Oh, geez, you've got a paper full of
This
notes
is your
there.
paper.
Yeah, I know. I see.
and it's the product that Ira produced. And I have to tell you that it's more data than Wilmerite has presented in all of its 500-page DEIS or its 40-page financial data. Fair enough. They were under the assumption, the applicant, that the SUNY was going to take care of it. So all of that went out. But even now, tomorrow, let's see, Monday night, I believe, next week, the applicant will be back, and they have said they, through FOILs and other mechanisms, have got the numbers they need. They are not these numbers. So, but they have told the planning board that as of Monday night, they will bring their data. And even though I know the efforts have been going on, formally and informally, with you, Mr. Chairman, and this board, if you watch all the videotapes of the planning board meetings, and I've been at all of them, and even after the video is shut off, when they have an administrative discussion, which is perfectly appropriate, I held it myself, the words never came out of the chairman's mouth, Mike Calamano, about that interaction with you. And department heads in this town and groups like this commission are being painted as not being forthcoming. That's the present view, even of some of the board members who get confused, they're new, they don't press hard enough. So unless there's some communication formally from the police commission that goes and is knowledge, it could be an email or something to the planning board members that says, you're in the midst of gathering this and so forth, that may come forth through the voluntary efforts of the planning board chair, but I've been disappointed, and I've told him this personally, that he has not communicated to his own board and made facts known that I know to be true, and if they're not true, you'll correct me right now.
Well, I can tell you that, and it may have been before you came in, that the chief and I were invited to participate in a meeting with Mr. Calamano,
Right.
Mr. Clauser, the attorney for the planning board, I believe, and Supervisor Zimmett. So we had our communication there, and we talked about some issues. We talked about numbers. In fact, this sheet for calls was one of the additional requests that they had asked us to do, in addition to the cost of a car, the cost of training, the cost of some of the other stuff.
This sheet?
No, this particular sheet is just the salary and
Salary and benefits,
salary
plus a car.
and benefits
Plus a
plus
car.
car.
Just
Yes.
$12 million. What, in terms of the 80...
That's just personnel over 25 years.
Were the other numbers you discussed, Mr. Chairman, of this magnitude, $12,500,000?
We have not yet calculated, because that's part, we're trying to get at those figures, and some of it is trying to extract it out of the dinosaur of a computer that
Right.
we have over
I got
there.
it.
So that's why it's,
Well, what were
we're
those
not
numbers?
trying to,
Were
we're
they
not
half
trying to
this?
be slow.
No,
We're
you're
just
not.
trying to make sure, we're just trying to get the information, and it's just taking us the time to do it, and we'd much rather it be right than hurried.
Unless the chairman reports that. By the way, the magnitude of the numbers you shared, with 2 paid consultants, outside consultants, the chair and the supervisor, not the 6 other members of the board, who may or may not, and have not in the past, gotten the texture of these kinds of discussions. In fact, didn't know. I'm not sure they will understand the efforts of that night. We will know by being at the meeting, which I will be, or watching. But I ask you again, compared to $12.5 million, was the sum total of what you did report to that, at that meeting, $1 million, $500,000, $5 million?
No, what we reported to them were the numbers that we have on this paper here, just for personnel and salary.
This page?
All
right.
This 12.5 million.
Okay, good. Well, then that...
And believe it or not, Ira, who is our mathematician, believes the figure is low, so he still needs to check. He's trying to work with, I think you need to sit down with Gene to check on something with benefits or something to make sure that the number that you're using or your assumption is
I
correct.
had a lower number. Jean took a look at the, knowing what she knows about the benefits and being part of it, she says you're low. I still think my $12 million is low because, like I said, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, when you have a 66% increase in in the biggest benefit, which is the retirement fund alone, I mean, what do you plan for that? I planned a certain amount of increase, a reasonable amount that I thought, because as salaries go up, that percentage will get less and whatever. We have no idea. Tomorrow, with this new medical or whatever plan is, the American, whatever they call this plan is, who knows what the thing is. They're already predicting 100% increases in medical costs. So I'm
definitely
using a
not
medical
linear.
cost, huh?
It's not linear, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at medical costs that I did per employee. My medical costs, my costs, which I say are 2011, were based because I had the total cost of every officer in the police department by their specific cost. In other words, if Harry was a single person, his medical cost was A. If he was married, it was B. If he was dependent, it was C. And those came up to the percentages based upon pluses and minuses.
Ira,
Yeah.
I heard once that saying someone's name stopped them from talking briefly, so you could get your point in. I think these numbers are fine. They are conservative. They don't even add in 3 or 4% annually for cost of living, so if I just took 3% and added another column, and then added it to the 12.5, that's $500,000. So, I'm making a comment, let me finish it, and then I will go, because I'm the only thing standing between you and your executive meeting. I don't care if it's 12, I don't care if it's 15, it's going to be 15. No matter what, it's 12. The applicant is offering to pay 5 over the next 25 years. That's my point.
Yeah.
So you've already shown that
Dollars?
$5 million. Oh, it might as well be $5.
That's
though.
$5 million total, not
Total.
$5 million for the police.
That's correct. And of that $5 million, only 33% goes to the town. Of the $5 million they're offering over 25 years, And that, by the way, is increased by 4% a year. So they're being very generous, because their stance is they owe nothing. So we should think of the $5 million as a gift. Now, the data you use, at the very worst, is going to be used by a town to negotiate a pilot. It hopefully will never come to that, because if the town does its work, it will rise up and say, my God, you're offering $5 million over 25 years. We know it's going to cost us 15 or more. They don't know that now, and I don't think it's gotten through to Supervisor Zimmett, and it certainly hasn't penetrated Mr. Calamano. I'll know whether it has by Mr. Calamano's behavior on Monday night. But the board doesn't get it. Maybe they'll watch this, but I doubt it. There's my wife may be watching, but she usually falls asleep. She says I should keep a low profile, like Ira. So, here's the other point. What would they pay if they were taxed normally as a for-profit? $60 million. That's based on evidence and data. Many of us went to Laurie King. She can confirm that the first year would be $1.5 million. Total taxes to the school. Again, we only get 33%. So $1 million goes to the school. So no matter what they pay, if they pay $60 million, $500,000 goes to the town. However, not really. 80% of the $500,000 in the first year goes to the town. 20% goes to the county. So 80% of $500,000 is $400,000 in the first year. You're projecting in the first year $269, so we make a profit. By the fifth year, we're in deep debt. It's so silly, but no one understands what you now know. Keep your figures conservative. Don't go straining over 4. Maybe, I do think you should add the 4%. But they would legally be asked to pay, under normal circumstances, any 732 rental property, $60 million. In their pilot application to the Ulster County IDA, they're offering 5. The IDA may pound the table and say, oh no, how about 7 or 9? The only way to stop this is for the town to rear up with the data you give them and say to the IDA, no way. Then other citizens may hear, and the school district may understand how it's going to get like $4 million over rather than $50 million, and they will do what they do. You don't have any control over them. You don't control the town board, but you do by information and education and influence. I'm more appreciative than ever. I heard more talking and listening, talking with one another, listening to one another here than I've heard in the past 5 years in the town government. And so which one of you want to run for supervisor is my next question. But I thank you again.
Ira.
You are on. No, he talks too much.
That's okay.
I don't want him to be, I want him here. But
You're starting out with saying aye. Aye.
No, Ira.
Ira, no, right. This is, you're watching over the biggest part of our town budget. Many of these things are going to create, this would be the biggest legacy you could give us. So thanks for your efforts again, and I'm sorry to take up your time.
Well,
but-
and before you go, you know, I want to say that you know, part of the stomping that we do here is not just for the taxpayer, but it is also for the police
Of course.
department. And it's for the police department because it is frequently the piñata for the town and the village. And the costs that it incurs, you know, is always the topic of discussion because it is the biggest part of the town budget. And I think when I first heard of this and I said to Ira, you know what I want to do? If this is going to be 25 years, let's figure out how many officers we're going to need and how much that's going to cost us over 25 years,
Yep.
so that people can see what it is. It's not just this
It's real numbers.
vapor.
And it's real dollars, and it's real jobs, and it's real families of our emergency service providers. Keep in mind that you alone say 15 million, 12 million, 12.5 million. If the 60 million were paid, two-thirds of that 60 million, 40,000, go to the school district. So there's only 20 million left for the town to split with the county. That 20 million, 80% of it will only go to the town. That's 16 million. The 16 million is barely, that's what they propose, that's all we would get from, right now, with the full payment, 16 million. This is going to go over 16 million. So the police will absorb it all. If the elected officials, Supervisor Zimmett and the 4 other members, turn their nose up at the barely $16 million, and then come back and beat up our police department because it costs too much, or threaten the village, it's ludicrous. And so I think it must stop, and your actions are going to help the taxpayer, but they're also going to stop the piñata effect.
Let's hope.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to leave, but not because, I know you have an executive session, not because I don't respect what you do here, but I told my wife I'd be home at 8.
No. Me too. That'll never happen at a commission meeting. Thank you.
See the guy who writes the column.
Announcements. I believe we have personnel issues, so the chair will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive session for discussion of hiring, firing, salaries, etc.
Is there a second?
Discipline.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? None. Okay. We're good. Thank you.
I bet you somebody wants a lollipop now, but behave it.
Yeah.
Hey.